Hey guys. This is part 4 of What If Naruto Was in Bloodborne. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 11, Fettered Humanity. Sasuke was not entirely sure what was up with his team. They were supposed to be up for the Chunin examinations. Naruto had been eager to compete just yesterday, but he seemed to be agitated and distracted, while Sakura just seemed uncertain of herself and nervous. Despite the fact that Naruto kept killing their enemies and had saved the day more than once with disturbingly efficient violence, the Uchiha still considered himself the more mature leader. He would privately admit he was a little bitter that Naruto had overtaken him so quickly, but he could see that the blonde was far too tense and unused to his own abilities. Sasuke wondered if such stress was common among those who grew in power too quickly too young. A familiar face with deep tear tracks flashed through his mind as Cell 7 went up the stairs to the second floor, but he shook his head. The second floor was crowded, more so than the rest of the building. Sasuke glanced at the door they were crowded around was apparently the door they were supposed to go to get to the first phase of the exams. 301, on the second floor. Naruto recognized Tenten but didn't make out what she was arguing about with the other Konoha shinobi in front of the door, an older boy who backhanded her. Mutterings about cruelty from the watching genin were cut off as something blonde and predatory moved into the sensory perceptions of a hall full of aspiring Chunin. The genin all jolted in alarm, leaped aside and armed themselves as Naruto strode towards the boy who struck Tenten with a blank expression on his face, and his right hand drifting up from its resting post ion, his body tilted slightly forward. Tenten was startled by the sudden appearance of the blonde. "What? Naruto?" she asked, snapping the blonde out of his hazy mental state. "Your sensei let a rookie like you show up?" she asked dryly in an attempt to dismiss the dread the boy had seemed to subconsciously evoke. Naruto frowned but lowered his right hand to offer to help her up. The shift in his stance had everyone relax for reasons they didn't want to dwell on. Yeah, Kakashi-sensei said it might be surprising," he recalled. Tenten gripped the offered wrist, the blonde gripped hers back and he helped lift her. The girl was startled by how quickly and easily he'd managed that. Must be stronger than you look," she mused as she let go, partly joking about a rookie taking the exam and partly wondering about that strength. Naruto's eyes shifted between all the different genin looking at him. "Yeah," he said before his eyes fell on the older teenage genin who had backhanded Tenten. "So what's your problem anyway, asshole?" he asked, trying not to move as he had noticed the effect he could have if he wasn't careful. "I could ask the same of you," the older boy with two large kunai strapped to his back retorted. "That was some serious killing intent for a hit that wasn't even directed at you or your team," he teased. "Ni-gen who act like Yaja piss me off," Naruto said with a glare. To his surprise, the older ninja actually flinched. He hoped his appearance hadn't become more bestial without his knowledge. That would be hard to explain. The other ninja guarding the door stepped up. A black jumpsuit went up to his chin. "Really? Had no other reason to come to the rescue of a girl you seem to know on a first-name basis?" he asked with a smirk. Naruto was a little embarrassed by that implication. "Are you going to get out of the way, or continue to annoy me?" he asked through grit teeth. "You guys really should just back off," Sasuke spoke up as he approached. "Naruto picks fights with Jonin. If you can't even take me, he might accidentally kill you because the dumbass has no idea how to control his strength," he said, unable to make the compliment entirely flattering without embarrassing himself. "Oh?" the boy with the oversized kunai on his back asked with a raised eyebrow. "Is that what you?" he began to ask before his body snapped into motion to deliver a kick at Sasuke. "Think," he finished loudly to provide an exhalation of breath along with the movement. The Uchiha intended to counter with his own kick and Naruto reached for his weapon, but all three were stopped by a bowl-cut boy in green spandex with the thickest eyebrows the blonde had ever seen, and orange legwarmers. Bandaged hands had caught the kicks of two genin. Sasuke was impressed. "Damn it, Lee," Tenten groaned, "keeping a low profile was your idea," she complained as the two boys who had attempted to kick each other disengaged from the strangely dressed genin. Another boy stepped up besides the griping kunoichi with long black hair tied in a loose ponytail, featureless white eyes, his Hittite indicative of Konoha, dressed in a beige shirt, dark brown pants, his shuriken holster strapped to his right leg, and bandages wrapped around his right leg and right arm. Well then, the white-eyed boy spoke, maybe you should not have been flirting so casually after you supposedly got hit. He scolded dryly. Tenten jolted, that was not flirting. She denied hotly, it's information gathering. Come on, his sensei is Kakashi Hatake. He invented a weird weapon I cannot replicate the mechanism of yet, and his teammate is the last Uchiha. She listed, it's worth keeping an eye on this runt is all. She grumbled. Naruto gave the kunoichi an exasperated look. I don't know if I should be flattered or grossed out. He muttered. Lee, however, was looking at the kunoichi of Cell 7 who had not been mentioned, a blush on his cheeks as he stepped towards her. Hi, my name is Rock Lee. He introduced politely. You're Sakura, aren't you? He questioned the slightly younger genin. Would you like to go out with me? I will protect you with my life. He requested and declared in short succession, giving a thumbs up and a wink. No way, Sakura responded in a flat tone, you are way out of hand. She added before she turned to Tenten, did you stalk our team? She asked. Information gathering is not stalking. Tenten insisted with a stomp. Naruto got sick of the discussion. He was there to become a chunin, so he moved towards the door. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. He had assumed his team had noticed what he had, but the blonde apparently was a bit more distracted than expected. The boy guarding the door with the jumpsuit up to his chin intercepted. Where do you think you're going? He asked before he delivered a right hook to Naruto's left cheek. Strangely, the boy flinched as if to move, his right hand lifted up towards his weapon, but he froze up and took the punch. The blonde didn't go down though, he barely moved, then he glared. I almost killed you, dumbass. He growled before he stepped forward on his right foot with a low stomp. The older boy was startled as his fist failed to even overcome neck muscles. Naruto's neck didn't even look thick, but then his right palm impacted the navel of the boy who punched him and sent him through the door and into an empty room. The other boy looked startled by that. Well. He vocalized lamely as the sign changed from 301 to 201. Sasuke sighed. Naruto, this is the second floor. You just broke a random door these morons were using to toy with people. He explained. The boy with the oversized kunai on his back stepped into the room and lifted the door to vaguely cover the entrance. I'm going to, first aid, incident report, you guys do your examination thing. He said. I told you he was stronger than he looked. Tenten told the white-eyed boy with her arms crossed and her nose up. Naruto noticed the stares were all back on him again. Well, exam time, he said and bolted for the stairs. His team moved to follow him, as did Tenten, Lee, the white-eyed boy, and the other genin when their shock wore off. You haven't even officially started the first phase and you caused a commotion. Kakashi wasn't sure if he should be impressed or not when the blonde turned up. He'd heard what happened downstairs. Naruto shrugged. He started it. He excused childishly as his teammates arrived behind him. Well, good to see all three of you, Kakashi said cheerfully. If one of you had not been here, I'd have to turn you all away. It's a team exam after all, he revealed. Sakura realized immediately that the man wanted to be sure she was coming of her own accord and felt a little guilty. She was mostly showing up because she did not want to be left behind by her team becoming chunin without her. Sasuke smirked, as if there was any doubt. We're the strongest team of rookies, he declared proudly, which did lift Sakura's spirits a little. Well said, in good confidence, Kakashi praised as he stepped aside. Now get in there, he ordered, and the three genin entered the room. As soon as they were inside, the atmosphere inside the room immediately soured Sakura's mood, the girl looking at all the older ninja here to take the exams nervously. Sasuke turned serious as well, noticing the amount of foreign ninja staring at them. Naruto's eyes immediately shifted. He saw two flashes of red hair and recognized one was auburn hair catching light. He smelled decaying blood in that direction and his hackles raised. Gaara turned to meet his glare with an impassive stare. Sasuke-kun! A female voice broke the atmosphere with a cheery tone as the owner of the voice jumped on the Uchiha. Where have you been, cutie? The light green-eyed girl asked, long blonde hair pulled back in a high ponytail with some bangs hanging to the right of her face, dressed in a purple outfit consisting of a high-collared blouse and matching apron skirt. with white arm warmers similar to Sasuke's own, her Hittite worn as a belt, bandages wrapping her torso and upper legs, and small hoop earrings. "Ino, you pig!" Sakura snapped at the girl for hanging on to Sasuke. "Get your hooves off my Sasuke-kun!" The pink-haired girl demanded angrily. "Hello to you too, Sakura." Ino responded in a more flat tone, still hoping the giant mutant forehead look will come into fashion. "How sweet!" she mocked the other girl. "Why don't you save yourselves the embarrassment of flunking this test?" Another voice piped up, attracting attention to the two teammates of the blonde girl, a brown-eyed boy with his hair tied up in a spiky ponytail, the one to speak as the other. A lighter brown-haired boy with his Hittite causing it to stick up in two tufts that made it seem like he was wearing underwear on his head for a moment, and red swirls on his chubby cheeks, shoveled potato chips into his mouth. "Go die, okay?" the darker-haired and slimmer boy requested. Naruto knew these genin from the academy. The rounder boy was named Choji Akimichi, dressed in a dark green hiyori over a lighter green shirt with the kanji for food emblazoned on the front, along with a white scarf, bandages wrapped around his forearms and lower legs, and black shorts. The slimmer boy was Shikamaru Nara, wearing his usual outfit with his Hittite tied to his left arm. The blonde tried to recall what he knew of their clans. They were founding members of Konoha and for generations had formed a strong team that used their clan Hijitsu with unheard synergy. Yamanaka owned a flower shop and worked with Tianai, the Nara owned a forest or something, and the Akimichi rented their land out to fast food stalls or food production depending on location. "Hey!" Another new voice called out, "There you guys are!" Another young male genin announced, "Here I was hoping we'd be the only rookie cell here," he added with mock sadness. Naruto recognized them as well. The boy who spoke was Kiba Inuzuka, a wild-looking boy with brown hair, and slit pupils in his brown eyes, as well as pronounced canines, and red fawn markings on his cheeks. The Inuzuka wore his Hittite on his forehead, had dark gray pants, and a lighter gray hoodie with black fur linings. His dog, Akamaru, was riding around on his head. Shino Aburame was the other boy on Kiba's team, wearing round sunglasses over his eyes, a sea-green jacket with a high, upturned collar, his Hittite also on his forehead, and dark brown pants. Naruto didn't get this boy. The Aburame wasn't his kind of guy though. Hinata Hyuga was the female member of their team, a very shy girl that refused to make eye contact with Naruto, something that bothered the attention-hungry blonde. The girl had featureless white eyes, dark blue hair and a haim cut so short it was almost reminiscent of a bowl cut, her Hittite hanging loosely from her neck, dressed in navy blue pants, and a cream-colored jacket with fire symbols on the upper arms and white fur around the cuffs and hem. "Looks like the gang's all here," Kiba continued with a smirk, hands in the pockets of his hoodie. Akamaru, however, was just staring at Naruto. "Including you, unfortunately," Shikamaru shot back, giving the Inuzuka a lazy glare. Kiba ignored that. "So, all three of the rookie genin cells applied for this exams?" He pondered out loud. "I wonder how far we'll all get." He continued, "What do you think, Sasuke?" he asked with his confident smirk still in place. "Trying to psych us out by acting cool, Kiba?" Sasuke retorted with a confident smirk of his own. "Who's acting?" Kiba asked rhetorically. "With the way we've trained you guys don't stand a chance," he bragged with a confident chuckle. Naruto compared Kiba to the last thing that killed him multiple times and was less than intimidated. "You got some magic powers you've been hiding?" the blonde asked dryly, his voice dripping with sarcasm as the irony of his words was not lost on him. Kiba's shoulders lifted and stiffened. "I am sorry, Naruto-kun." Hinata spoke up nervously, fidgeting with her fingers. Kiba-kun didn't mean that the way it sounded. She apologized, still not able to make eye contact with the blonde. "Would you guys do us all a favor and just shut up?" Another new voice said. This one Naruto didn't recognize, and the 9 rookie genin turned to see an older genin, his Hittite indicating allegiance to Konohagakure no Sato on his forehead. The older boy, practically a young man, had onyx eyes, with his ash-gray hair pulled back into a ponytail, wearing black-rimmed circular glasses, a dark purple shirt with a high collar, a white undershirt, dark purple fingerless gloves with armored plates on the back of the hand, and dark purple pants with a white cloth waistband. "Why?" Naruto asked. He couldn't see any reason to remain quiet. There were no bear-sized wolves or building-sized deer monsters with wolf faces up here. You three gangs of would-be hotshots are all rookie genin fresh out of the local academy, right? The gray-haired young man asked. You're all wet behind the ears and runny-nosed. He added, annoying the rookie genin with his words, this isn't a school field trip, you know. He lectured. Who the heck do you think you are? Ino asked, irritated by the attitude of the older genin already. The glasses-wearing shinobi smirked, name's Kabuto, so what? He introduced, you kids need to be more observant. He added, gesturing to the room behind them. Why? Sakura asked as she turned, only to see exactly why. Now that her attention was back on the rest of the room, she noticed the glares and malicious intent directed at them with a shiver. Oh. She realized, some of her fellow rookies sharing in her sudden nervousness. Those guys directly behind you are from Amigekyo no Sato, Kabuto explained, seems like they're on short fuses. He continued, everyone is on edge, waiting to take the exam. I figured I'd be a good senpai and give you the heads up before someone in the room snapped and beat you all up. He finished with a smirk. Naruto was visibly not intimidated. He was not sure if he was supposed to be or not, but he'd killed AIM Nuke Nin older than most of the AIM genin present. The blonde already knew that in a fight he was Chunin level. He realized then that he and his team had experience few teams there had. Naruto and Gaara were the only two who smelled so heavily of blood, who had been drenched in it to the point it seeped into their very pores. To the blonde that made the other boy terrifying, but everyone else seemed non-threatening in comparison. None of the shinobi in the room could kill Naruto in a way that he thought would actually matter, so they probably used Suiton? He guessed as he vaguely recalled a whip of water being thrown at him in Takigakure. The oppressive atmosphere became heavier. You're picking fights with AIM already? Good grief. Kabuto muttered as he adjusted his glasses. I guess it can't be helped. I can't stop kids running their mouths. He sighed. I can provide you kids with some vital intelligence. I've taken this test a few times myself and gathered plenty of intel. He offered. How many times have you attempted this, Kabuto-san? Sakura asked politely, curious about how much experience the older genin had with the exams. This would be my 7th attempt, 2 attempts a year for the past 4 years I think. Kabuto answered as he pulled out a deck of cards with the kanji for shinobi printed on the back of them. These are my Ninshiki Kato, a type of tool you can burn information into with chakra. He explained, they're key to the chakra used to burn the information into them, so only the person who made them can pull out the information. Like so. He finished, pulling one card from the deck and showing a blank card until he flowed chakra into it. The genin all stared at the information being presented. The card Kabuto was showing off had details on the number of teams each nation had sent to the exams. 87 for Konohagakure indicated 29 teams being the most, which made sense considering Konoha were the hosts. It seemed of the Shinobi Godaikoku only Konoha and Suna sent teams, 10 teams from Suna for a total of 30 genin, with the rest all coming from minor villages like Amigakure sending 21 shinobi for 7 teams, with Kusugakure and Takigakure tied next at 2 teams each or 6 genin. And finally some were called Otogakure no Sato for a single team of 3 genin. A grand total of 153 genin in 51 teams. Do you also have information on individual shinobi in those cards? Sasuke asked, his own curiosity piqued for different reasons. Kabuto smirked. Why? Someone caught your attention? He asked rhetorically. I'll admit it's not going to be quite as complete, but I've gathered what information I could on the current pool of applicants. He answered, flipping the card he'd been showing back into the deck and shuffling them. Your own teams are in here too, so give me any details and I'll see what I can do. He agreed. Gaara from Sunagakure, and Rock Lee of Konoha. Sasuke answered plainly, more interested in satisfying his curiosity than worrying about the oddly generous older genin. You know their names? Too easy then. Kabuto said, pulling a pair of cards from the deck. First up, Rock Lee, he began, flowing chakra into the card, a year older than you rookies, 20 D rank missions and 11 C rank missions under his belt. The jonin in command of his team is Mato Guy, and while his taijutsu skills have skyrocketed in the past year, he has no other talents to speak of. This is his first attempt at the exams, like you rookies, and his teammates are Niji, Hyuga, and Tenten. The glasses genin finished. Kabuto continued by putting another card down on top of the first. Next, Suna no Gara, otherwise known as Sabaku no Gara. He continued, his chakra flowing into the card to reveal a lack of information compared to the first two cards he'd shown, 8C rank missions, and AB rank 2. It's rare for a genin to be on AB rank, even more rare than the threat level being escalated in the middle of a mission. The young man said with a meaningful smirk at Team 7, he's from way out in the desert, so I have less information on him, but apparently he's come back from every mission without a scratch. He finished. Without a scratch but drenched in blood. Naruto muttered. Kiba heard that. What? He asked, and when Akamaru barked, the Inuzuka's eyes widened. Without a scratch? That's a bit nuts. He continued, he'd discuss what his hound partner told him with the blonde later. Kabuto raised an eyebrow at the remark of the blue-eyed Uzumaki, but didn't comment. Well, this year, every hidden village has sent their best. He began to explain as he stood up and put his cards away. I don't have as much intelligence on Otogekure no Sato. They're a small new village in a newly formed nation, so information is lacking. He added idly, every other village is well respected though, home to some powerful shinobi. He explained in the same lecturing tone. Hinata frowned. Anyone besides me suddenly feeling outclassed? She asked quietly, nervous about what they were just told. So Sakura spoke up, what you're saying, everyone here is dash? She began to ask hesitantly. Oh yeah, Kabuto interrupted, everyone in this room is pretty much like Lee or Gara, the elite among the genin of their village. He explained. Shikamaru considered the cards carefully. Got any info on us rookies? He asked curiously. Kabuto scoffed, you'd have more information than me there, you all graduated together. He excused. Humor me, Shikamaru requested, show me what you have on Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto tensed up immediately. The very idea of someone investigating him set his hair on end and his right hand twitched upwards. If Kabuto noticed, he did not comment. Instead, he obliged the Nara and revealed the details. The information was so mundane the blonde was almost relieved. It was strange to have what Kabuto thought of his abilities quantified on a little circle chart. The missions caught the attention of the other rookies though. 2A ranks. Kiba snapped in alarm, what the hell? Everything else is D ranks. Sasuke smirked, so those did turn into A ranks. He mused, they were C rank when we took them. He said, revealing that both times Cell 7 had taken a C rank mission, enemy shinobi had shown up in force. Naruto's eyes scanned the crowd for the Taki symbol. He wondered if any of them recognized him. He caught both the redhead he'd seen earlier looking at him and Gara still staring at him, but the bespectacled red-haired girl had the Kusa symbol on her Hittite and seemed suddenly fearful of him. Of course, most of the room was staring at Cell 7. The AIM ninja in particular all seemed focused on Naruto though. The blonde idly wondered if they'd heard about what he did in Taki. He had let that one kunoichi get away. Then the blonde remembered, oh right, you're all probably glaring at me because of that bounty. He mused out loud. Sakura winced, Naruto, bingo books aren't distributed to genin. She pointed out. Their sensei could have told them, it is high for a rookie genin. Sasuke countered, he figured it was better to use the figure for intimidation. Anyone who didn't believe it would find out Naruto actually did deserve it. Kabuto adjusted his glasses. Alright, you're the kid who killed Gato. He said, yeah, that's going to get some looking for a quick payday hunting you. He acknowledged. Naruto scoffed, their funeral. He muttered sarcastically. The confident dismissal of near everyone in the room had all the assembled genin glaring again. Then the blonde spotted movement in the crowd, coming at their group. One leaped high and tossed 4 kunai, oddly designed with the ring for tying tools to in between the handle and blade instead of the pommel, at Kabuto and Naruto. Each dodged back as the blonde registered the first attacker, a boy with spiky black hair, dark eyes, wearing a beige shirt with 2 black stripes along with the kanji for death printed down the front thrice, black sleeves going down his arms from under the shirt, a snake-patterned scarf his neck matching his snake-patterned camo pants, and his Hittite having an attached hapuri. Before the attacker landed or the attacked could counter, a second young genin lunged at Naruto, this one with bandages covering most of his face, leaving only his left eye and eyebrow uncovered. He also wore a large poncho with long sleeves, a snake-patterned scarf around his neck, and a straw raincoat protruding from the back of his scarf. The bandaged-faced genin was making the seal of confrontation with his left hand as he swung his right arm at the blonde genin in a wide right hook. Naruto stepped into his attacker's guard and delivered a left straight punch to the bandaged nose of the Oto genin, sending the other boy stumbling back only to stagger himself. The blonde winced and clutched his head as a sharp ringing sound accompanied a pain he'd never experienced before. The world spun and he felt ill, but he managed to keep to his feet. The bandaged boy pulled himself up. "Damn it, not all talk then," he growled. "Or you're just weaker than you pretend," Sasuke pointed out dryly. A few of the genin in the crowd nodded in agreement with that, since Naruto did seem scrawny. Those who had seen what he did on the second floor were less sure of that. "They are from Otogekyo no Sato, a new and small ninja village," Kabuto pointed out. "It stands to reason they feel the need to appear strong by taking a swing at us." Naruto's eyes shifted to the Oto Kunoichi. The girl had fair skin, black eyes with very long black hair, almost reaching down to the ground, tied by a violet ribbon right near the end, wearing her hataite on her forehead, a pale green vest somewhat similar to a flak jacket, snake-patterned pants with a snake-patterned skirt over it, and a snake-patterned scarf around her neck, much like her teammates. The blonde turned his attention back on the bandaged one. "That hurt, what was it?" he asked bluntly. The pain had been unbearable. "Wouldn't you like to know?" "If you hit me with that again, I won't ask again," Naruto retorted. "That was the worst pain I have ever felt, and he had died more than once, but no one needed to know that. So if you hit me with that again without explaining it, I'm considering it an attempt to kill me and killing you in self-defense." It wasn't until he was done speaking that Naruto registered how shaken he had been by the damage of the attack. It had not killed him. He wasn't certain whether or not it could. The Oto genin didn't seem to know how to respond to that threat. It was hard to get a read on the bandaged face. "Sorry to have kept you punks waiting," the scarred man said with a smirk that indicated he was far from apologetic. "My name is Ibiki Marino. I'm proctor and chief examiner for the first phase of this exam," he introduced before pointing to the Oto genin. "You, the brats from Otogekyo no Sato." He singled them out. "You can't carry on any way you please when the exams are about to start," he scolded. "Or are trying to get disqualified?" he asked, the question sounding like a threat. The bandaged one answered for his team. "Sorry, sir," he apologized. "It's our first time taking this exam, so I guess we got carried away," he explained, not wanting to apologize but not wanting to risk disqualification by angering the proctor. "It seems I need to lay down some ground rules for those of you with a little bit more bloodlust than the others," Ibiki began sternly. "From this point forward, there will be no fighting without the express permission of the examining officer," he explained. "Any of you little piglets break that rule are out. You're disqualified. No second chances. Got that?" he finished with a steely glare across the room. "Now then, the first part of the Chunin selection examination is about to begin. Hand in your applications and you will be assigned a seat, then you are to report directly to your assigned seat," he continued, not wanting any further interruptions. "Once you're all properly seated, my assistant proctors will hand out the written part of the exams," he finished. Naruto was glad he had put a lot of his gathered will into his arcane, since that apparently helped with intelligence, but his eyes still twitched at the very idea of having to do a written test. It took a little bit of time, but soon everyone was in their assigned seats with the piece of paper for the first part of the exam face down in front of them, along with a simple graphite pencil each. Naruto-kun?" Hinata spoke up from beside the blonde to get his attention. The boy turned with a resigned expression. Let's do our best." She quietly attempted to lift his spirits. He clearly was not happy with the way the first phase was going, and they hadn't even started yet. Naruto forced himself to smile and nod. He didn't want to worry the girl. "Keep your papers face down until I give the signal," Ibiki ordered from the front of the room, picking up a piece of chalk as he approached the blackboard. "Now then, I'll explain the rules as I write them, and pay attention because I'm only going to say this once and I'm not answering any questions," he began, his words confusing many genin, especially Sakura. "Rule number 1. Each one of you starts with 10 points. This test has 10 questions, each worth 1 point. For every question you get wrong, you lose a point. He continued as he wrote on the blackboard rule number 2. This written portion of the exam is still a team event, so passing or failing is determined by the sum total of the points of each 3 members of each genin cell. The object is for each team to have as few deductions from their joint 30-point total. The scarred man continued. Sakura understandably slammed her head into the desk in front of her because she had Naruto on her team. Wait a second. She interrupted, hopping up and raising her hand. The whole concept of starting points and deductions is complicated enough, but what's this team total you're talking about? She questioned desperately, hoping she misheard. Ibiki turned a glare on the pink-haired kunoichi. Did you not hear the part about no question? We have our reasons, now shut up and listen. You might learn something. He scolded the genin coldly. This next bit is crucial. Rule number 3. If, during the course of this exam, any proctor catches anyone doing anything suspicious, in other words anything that leads a proctor to so much as suspect you of cheating, then 2 points will be deducted from each member of that person's team. He explained with a cruel smirk, noticing a few genin picking up on certain details. In all probability, some of you will burn through all of your points before the test is over. Should that happen, you and your team will be asked to leave. I'll be watching over your shoulder when you least expect it. One of the assistant proctors added, holding a clipboard and pencil of his own. If you let the proctors catch you cheating, you'll let your entire team down. Ibiki continued, smirking as he enjoyed mentally tormenting the room of genin. If you aspire to become Chunin, if you want to be the best shinobi you can be, then you'd better start acting like you already are. He lectured, and something about those words resonated with Naruto. Another thing, if any of you loses all 10 points, then your entire cell will be failed, he declared. Naruto could feel Sakura and Sasuke's intent to kill him already as he frowned, the boy having hoped to rely on those two getting enough answers right that he'd be fine. You all have 1 hour, Ibiki began, starting. He paused to wait for the clock to hit the turn of the next minute. Now, he declared, and every genin turned over their papers to begin. Sakura mentally begged Naruto hold on to at least 1 point. The blonde himself looked over the questions, mercifully written in katakana with a few kanji accompanied by furigana to help those like Naruto who could not read at an adult level. Despite his studies and increases to his intelligence, however, he couldn't answer a single one. Naruto was halfway through a complicated word problem before he finally realized it was a math problem, and then he still struggled to figure out how to solve it. What bothered him more was that he was pretty sure he could make the shot being described, which meant he did not even need to know the math behind it. The blonde genin agonized over questions he could not possibly answer for most of the testing period when the kunoichi sitting to his right slipped her paper under her left arm. In that instant, Hinata looked like an angel to the blonde. Seeing as Naruto noticed the girl didn't risk speaking up, simply continued to look forward as if she wasn't silently offering her answers. The blonde almost considered refusing, but he recalled that cheating was not an instant dismissal and Hinata's papers seemed filled out with katakana. So Naruto risked it. He read what he could as quickly as he could manage and wrote down what he could remember to hold on to some points. Thanks, he whispered to the girl. He made a note to thank her again later just in case. As far as he could tell, she'd saved him. Eventually, the test was soon coming to a close as the 45-minute mark finally hit. All right. Ibiki spoke up. Silently, he was impressed that Naruto had kept up the staring contest for so long, although he wasn't sure why. Here it comes. Get ready for the 10th question. He told the room to get all the genin to pay attention, noticing one of the genin of Suna returning from the bathroom. Ah, looks like you're in luck. You got back just in time for the 10th question, so your time playing with dolls wasn't wasted, he told the boy, who winced at the phrasing of that. Kakashi was in a bar called Jinsei Arwaro with the other Jonin commanders of the rookie genin cells. With our subordinates tied up, we've got some free time, he said lazily. It wasn't like they could go training or on missions either, since they might need to be on call if something happened. Don't worry, Asuma spoke up, breathing out a lungful of cigarette smoke. We'll be busy again before you know it, he said idly, showing very little faith in the rookie genin. Why? Kakashi asked, correctly assuming the other Jonin knew something he didn't. Word is, they got Ibiki Marino as the chief examiner of the first phase of the exams. Asuma answered, taking another drag of his cigarette. Kakashi was surprised at that. Seriously? He asked incredulously. That bad? Kurenai asked, not recognizing the name. You're still new to being an elite jonin, Asuma spoke again, so you don't know him. He's the leader of the torture and interrogation corps. The man explained. Kurenai was stunned. Torture? She questioned, concerned for the health of her students now, a bit much for an exam. She complained, hoping they were playing a joke on her. Relax, he's not going to physically hurt them. Asuma assured, he won't need to, the man is a specialist at psychological warfare. He explained, amused by the situation, Ibiki understands the human heart completely. It's what makes him so terrifying. He uses his insight to mercilessly manipulate his foes, to bring to the surface their worst insecurities, their human weaknesses, and uses those weaknesses to make them crack. Trickery is no defense against his skills as an interrogator. He finished. He had some admiration for the talents of the man. Kakashi sighed. So, we doing bets? He wondered. Asuma scoffed. No way, I do not take sucker bets anymore. He denied blatantly. Kurenai shook her head to deny the idea as well. Kakashi supposed that was fair. It would be suspicious to push for gambling on their students. Before I give out the 10th question, I have a final rule for you all. Ibiki began, startling the remaining genin. This rule is absolute. He warned. First, you must choose whether or not to take the 10th question. He explained. Temari spoke up in surprise. Choose? She asked, stunned by that. What happens if we choose not to take it? She asked, wondering what the point of that would even be. Ibiki focused a hard glare on the entire room, making most of the remaining genin shiver with fear. If you choose to reject the 10th question, without even trying to answer it, you'll lose all your points and fail. He informed them sternly. Say what? One genin yelped in surprise. Why would anyone choose to reject it then? Another genin snapped, alarmed by a rule like that even being in place. Because of the other rule. Ibiki continued, if you try to attempt the question, but fail, you will never be permitted to take these exams again. Not ever. He declared, his announcement causing alarm and some panic among the genin. The torture specialist kept his expression neutral as he enjoyed watching them squirm. Kiba shot up suddenly. That's a load of crap. He snapped, there are genin here who have taken these exams multiple times. You can't fool us with that. He exclaimed loudly, pointing accusingly at the man he was calling out, but his nervousness was obvious to the proctors. Ibiki chuckled cruelly in response. Just your rotten luck, I suppose. I wasn't in charge of the rules the previous years. I am this time. He said with a smirk. Your villages already agreed to my terms, he assured, so if any of you have doubts, you'd be wise to back down now. The chief examiner continued, if any of you want to quit, raise your hand, and your team will be escorted out. He finished. Slowly, a few genin started to quit, apologizing to their teammates as the nerves got to them. Naruto was swiftly losing patience. Would you get on with it? He snapped suddenly, unknowingly interrupting a few who had been about to quit. Is the stress getting to you? Ibiki asked dryly. No. Naruto denied. The boredom is. I hate just sitting here listening to you talk people into leaving when you were supposed to ask the question exactly 45 seconds before I interrupted. He snapped. Also, he was pretty sure Ibiki had to die eventually, which probably nullified whatever rules he invented. Ibiki glanced at the clock with a raised eyebrow, then he slowly looked back over the crowd. Naruto was still glaring at the proctor. Very well then, the man said to those who remained, you all pass. Not this shit again. Sasuke groaned under his breath. Sakura had similar sentiments, as she recalled the way Kakashi had done something similar. The room around Cell 7 of Konoha was significantly less calm about this news. Chapter 12, Unfettered Instinct. Once everyone calmed down, Ibiki explained the purpose of the exam and the 10th question. Naruto was surprised he'd managed to bumble his way through answering both secret tests correctly. He hadn't even been consciously aware he was supposed to cheat. Of course, Ibiki continued again, reaching up for his hatai to begin untying it. Anyone who cheated in a clumsy or obvious way failed. He reminded as he pulled down the cloth covering the top of his head, revealing even more scars, burn marks, and even puncture marks where screws had been used, because there may be circumstances where being caught in the act of espionage can cost more than just your life. He warned, using his own scars as a grisly example, you pay in ways that can be taken from you little by little, time and time again, when many lives hang in the balance. He explained. This display had mixed reactions, mostly disgust and fear. Some like the Oto genin with the bandaged face thought it looked cool and that the man deserved it for getting caught. Naruto felt bad for the guy, but also he didn't think his skin even could scar. You've all passed the first hurdle. Ibiki told the 26 genin cells who had passed his test as he covered the top of his head back up. Part 1 of the Chunin selection exams is now concluded. I'll pray you all fight the good fight. He finished with a proud smile. Suddenly the window was shattered, startling the genin who has passed the first phase of the Chunin exams. The source of the damage was a blur of movement and cloth, a pair of kunai embedding in the ceiling to hang a banner that stated, Newly arrived Second Chief Examining Officer Anko Mitarashi. Standing in front of this banner was a slender woman with light brown eyes, violet hair styled in a short, spiky, fanned-out ponytail with bangs framing her face, wearing a practically indecently form-fitting metal mesh armor that went from neck to thigh under a dark orange miniskirt with a blue belt, tied on her forehead. A necklace with a charm that resembled a snake fang, a tan overcoat with purple inseam, and gray shin guards. Ibiki sighed from behind the banner at the antics as the woman started speaking. None of you are in any position to celebrate. I am the second chief examining officer, Anko Mitarashi. She introduced, times a waste in people. Let's go. Follow me. She declared loudly, throwing her right arm up in the way. When everyone just stared at her in shock, she blushed a bit in embarrassment. The banner rustled as Ibiki moved it aside to give her an exasperated look. Can't you sense the mood in here? He scolded in a flat tone. This new proctor, Sakura muttered to herself with an annoyed expression, she almost reminds me of Naruto. Or at least more how he'd been before something changed him before graduation. Anko seemed to suddenly realize just how many people were still in the room. 78? She said in surprise. You let 26 teams pass. She questioned as she rounded down Ibiki. Obviously you went too easy on them. She scolded. Ibiki sighed as only Anko would think he ever went easy on anyone. We've got some exceptional applicants this time around. He answered with a smirk. Yeah, right. Anko shot back with a sarcastic and disbelieving tone. I'll cut the number down by half before the next test is done. She announced, concerning a few of the younger genin, who I get charged up just thinking about it. She continued with a sadistic grin and a tremble to her body. I'll explain things in detail once we move to our next location, so follow me. She ordered. Anko led the 26 teams of genin who aspired to become Chunin to a large fenced-off forest. The fence was covered in signs warning of danger and not to trespass, while the visible gate was locked up with multiple padlock chains. There were even fuin tags slapped into the gate. This is the arena for the second phase of the exams, Anko began with a cruel smirk. Training Ground 44. Also known as the Forest of Death. She explained in a sadistic but oddly giddy tone of voice. It looks like a pretty creepy place. Sakura murmured nervously, intimidated by the attitude of the woman and the look of the forest. She couldn't even see very far into it for how thick the massive trees were. Anko chuckled. You're about to find out firsthand why we call this the Forest of Death, she said with a cruel smirk. Naruto huffed at the name. What? We going into a cemetery forest now? He asked sarcastically. Anko narrowed her eyes at the blonde genin. I hope your blade is sharper than your wit, or it'll become your grave. She warned with a predatory grin and a cheerful tone. I doubt it. Anko's eye twitched. Cocky brat, aren't ya? She asked rhetorically, then she swiftly palmed a kunai in her right hand and threw it. Naruto grabbed the blade out of the air, then he winced at the cut in his left hand from the action. The purple-haired proctor was there a moment later. She lifted his left arm to lick some blood from the blade in his hand. Your kind are always the first to go, she said with a chuckle as she leaned over his shoulder, left hand wrapped around his left wrist as her right hand caressed his other cheek to hold him in place, spilling all that rich, red, lovely, luscious blood. The woman practically crooned as she licked up some of the blood dripping from the cut in his hand that dripped down his wrist. Naruto flushed at the positive attention from the older woman. Despite the murderous undertones and the blood, he was kind of enjoying it, which bothered him a lot. However, the way she described blood had his eyes glaze over. The hand on his cheek reminded him of the dream, and his eyes fluttered shut as he leaned into the touch. Sakura and Sasuke were both surprised. Naruto had been a tightly wound ball of stress who never seemed to relax for so long they thought he'd forgotten how. Kiba waved a hand in front of Hinata's face, but as he expected there was no response. Anko's eyes widened down at the young blonde before she smirked mischievously. "Ah, you sleepy?" she crooned mockingly. Naruto jolted with a motion that shook him out of her grip. Then he adjusted his grip on the kunai and held the handle out to the woman. "No, I'm not tired," he denied, pink in the cheeks. Anko accepted the kunai with a raised eyebrow and a smirk at the flustered young blonde, but she set it aside for the moment. "Before we begin the second exam, there's something that needs to be handed out," the kunoichi said as she reached into her overcoat, Naruto's eyes widening as his proximity gave him a peek at her mesh-covered chest before she pulled out a stack of papers, their consent forms. "Everyone has to sign one," she explained to the confused genin. "Consent to what?" Hinata snapped. Kiba had never heard the girl sound like that. Anko laughed at the reaction. "We just want to get all the details out of the way before the first deaths occur. Sign before you go in, so we can't be held liable," she explained. "You wouldn't want me to get in trouble, would you?" she finished cheerfully. Hinata deflated with a sigh of relief, pink in the cheeks herself. A few genin were starting to get the idea that the proctor with purple hair just wanted to mess with them. "First, I'll explain the second exam, then you can sign these forms," Anko said as she waved the forms in her hand for emphasis. "Once they're signed, take them with your other 2 members of your cell to that hut back there." She continued with a gesture towards a hut that looked new, set up by the fence around the forest. "Got that?" she questioned as she handed the stack of papers to Naruto, who nodded at the rhetorical question and took one as he handed the rest on. "Now about the exam. To put this simply, it's a no-holds-barred survival test," she began to explain. The fact it would be a survival test surprised a few genin, while others became interested in the prospect of it being no-holds-barred. Shikamaru just thought the whole thing sounded like a drag, a real pain in the neck as far as he could tell. Anko pulled a scroll out of her overcoat. "Let's start with the topography of this training ground," she continued as she unfurled the scroll to reveal a very basic and bare-bones map, showing the forest had a large river going through the middle with a tower in the center, and 4 bridges spread out at different parts of the river. Training ground number 44 is bordered by a circular perimeter fence, interrupted at regular intervals by 44 locked gates. Approximately 10 kilometers from the perimeter, in the center, is a tower. She explained for those who couldn't see the map properly. Within the confines of this area, you're all going to undergo a survival test. During the test you may use any ninja arts or tools you have at your disposal. Naruto wondered if using his advantages with the old blood was cheating, but others had Kekkei Genkai anyway, so he decided it was fair. Well, it definitely wasn't fair, but he wasn't about to quit or give away what he was. "This is a fight to the death situation," she continued instead with a serious expression, "a life or death version of capture the flag, although in this case it's capture the scroll," she explained as she furled up the scroll of the map. "Scroll?" a genin from Takigakure no Sato asked, confused by that detail. "Exactly," Anko continued as she put the map scroll away and pulled out 2 more. One scroll was white with blue lines around the kanji for heaven, while the other was blue with the kanji for earth. "There's a ten no show, and a chi no show," she explained as she showed the genin crowd the 2 scrolls. "Your objective is to acquire both scrolls and reach the center tower. 13 teams will have the 10 no show, while the other 13 will have the chi no show. The goal is to acquire both by any means necessary and reach the tower at the center within 5 days," she explained. Sakura narrowed her eyes. This is what was meant by cutting the number of teams by half. She realized, the 13 teams who have their scrolls stolen will fail. She added, 5 days. Choji had a different concern. "What do we do for food?" he asked desperately. "The food situation is your problem. It's a survival test. The forest is full of nature's bounty if you aren't hopeless," Anko responded to the chubby genin coldly. "It's also full of man-eating animals, deadly insects, and poisonous plants. She continued, her words actually making Kiba smirk as Choji slumped with a sigh. There's no way as many as 13 teams will pass this. She added, I imagine not only will a bunch of you die fighting over scrolls, but some will likely die of exhaustion, exposure, starvation, or dehydration. She continued with a cruel grin. A few genin checked their supplies, checking on their travel rations and tools that could be used for hunting. Choji muttered something about scavenging from his enemies if worse came to worse, and everyone hoped he meant scavenging rations. Enko ignored the plight of the genin. Now, let's talk about rules and what you can be disqualified for. She continued with a grin to get attention back on her. Obviously, the teams that failed to reach the tower with all 3 members of their cell, as well as both the 10 no-show and she no-show, are out. She continued, so is any team that loses a member, whether to death or serious injury. She added, just in case that wasn't obvious from the first rule, no telling who would try to insist they technically passed by dragging the corpses of their team to the tower. Also, under no circumstances can you leave the forest before the time is up. No recesses or timeouts. Finally, you're forbidden to look at the contents of the scroll until you're inside the tower. What happens if we sneak a peek? Naruto asked curiously. It didn't look like it was trapped after all. That's for those who look to know, Enko said mysteriously with a wink to the blonde. If any of you make it to Chunin, there are times you'll be trusted with top-secret documents. So consider this a test of your trustworthiness. She explained more seriously, that's all the explanation you get. We'll trade 1 scroll for every 3 forms. Once you've got your scroll, pick a gate you want to start from. Everyone will begin at the same time. With the explanation done, the genin all began filling out the forms, going into the hut one at a time to retrieve their scrolls. The hut had a tarp to hide what scroll each team was given, as well as who was carrying it. Sasuke opted to carry the scroll for Cell 7, Naruto didn't feel like arguing. Naruto understood immediately that the forest that held the second phase of the Chunin exams were different. The trees were bigger, and the wildlife more savage. He wondered idly what had caused such a thing. Beneath Konoha was the old blood causing such monstrous traits. At least the monstrous traits of the denizens of Training Ground 44 was limited to gigantism, but they were still actually big enough to be a threat. The blonde went on high alert immediately. At one point he saw a massive bear attacking a girl and he went towards it so fast his team didn't have time to react. Naruto lifted Nokojiriboko from its holster as he descended from the apex of his jump towards the giant bear. His folding weapon snapped open with a flick and a metallic sound as he lifted it before he slammed the cleaver blade side into the skull of the animal as it looked. The bear roared as it reared back to its hind legs, but its left eye was destroyed by the damage and a large cut went down to its upper lip from there. Naruto snapped his blade folded closed again and leaped to swing the saw-toothed blade to the left and into the bear's chest as he tackled it. The bear roared again as it fell back. Naruto stood on the bear's chest and swung Nokojiriboko to his right, through the neck of the bear to silence it. Blood sprayed over him from the saw blade, rending open the throat of his prey, and after a moment, he saw the haze of the Chi no Ishi enter him. Damn it, Naruto, Sasuke complained with a sigh. Can you fight without drenching yourself in blood and making yourself easy to track? He requested with a raised eyebrow. Naruto looked down at himself, then down at the corpse of the bear, then at his weapon. Oh right. He muttered, the forest had sort of reminded him of the depths. Given a target that wasn't a person he could kill, he fell into his hunting habits, and seeing someone in danger to said animal had spurred him on. Sakura shook her head at the blonde before she turned her attention to the kunoichi he saved, a red-haired girl about their age with red eyes, glasses, dressed in fishnets, a skirt, and a short-sleeved jacket. She even had her team's scroll with her, and no team in sight. Unfortunately, it was the scroll Team 7 already had. It did give Sakura an idea though. Hey, my name is Sakura Haruno, what's your name? She asked the girl. They'd need to build a rapport if her idea was to have any merit. The redhead seemed nervous and stiffened when the two boys turned their attention on her with Sakura. My name is Karen, she said hesitantly. Her red eyes shifted to Naruto, who lowered his gaze to the ground to avoid eye contact. Sakura supposed she couldn't blame the kunoichi, who was from Kusagakure no Sato, judging by her hitaiite, since Naruto could be surprisingly scary when he got violent. The weapon covering the blonde in blood probably only added to that. The only reason Sakura herself wasn't as intimidated was because she knew the blonde underneath the viscera since the academy. Even knowing Naruto, the Haruno occasionally found herself startled or shying away from the blonde, and she had seen how the hallway of Genin had reacted to his presence once that other kunoichi being hit had set him off. "So, Karen-san," Sakura began, "don't worry, we aren't going to take your scroll, and Naruto is way more harmless than he looks," she assured, but the redhead looked at the blonde skeptically. "In fact, maybe we can work together?" she suggested. Sasuke frowned. "What? Why?" he asked. "Well, Karen-san has been separated from her team, Sasuke-kun," Sakura pointed out, "but she has their scroll." She added, "The kind we don't need, but her team needs her and her scroll and would be grateful for our help enough to help us in turn," she suggested a bit more quietly and quickly. "There is absolutely no guarantee her team would go for it," Sasuke retorted dryly. Karen silently agreed with Sasuke, only she knew her team would not go for it. The red-eyed kunoichi shifted her glance between the three Konoha genin. Naruto would not meet her eyes. Sakura looked hopeful. Sasuke looked annoyed. Karen began. She wanted to be honest, but she was a bit scared. "My team would have to be real jerks to not be grateful," she decided eventually as she stood, leaving out that she was pretty sure they were worse than jerks. "See?" Sakura said happily, "no-holds-barred survival doesn't mean we have to kill each other. Karen-san wants to survive too, and the proctor did say this place was full of nature's bounty." She lectured, "Therefore, the only resources we really need to fight over is the scrolls. We have the same scrolls, so our goals are compatible." She finished with a firm nod. Naruto looked down at the bear he was still standing on as he recalled what he'd read about skinning. He had conflicting information, unfortunately. He vaguely recalled the academy saying tanning was a process, that he couldn't recall how it worked, but the books and the dreams seemed to think you could just skin the pelts down in the depths and wear them. The blonde decided he better check. "Is tanning a hide necessary?" he asked. "Naruto, we are not lugging around bear hide for 5 days, tanned or otherwise." Sasuke refused the idea. "Just harvest some of the meat and leave the corpse for carrion," he ordered. Naruto looked down at the bear, and it occurred to him he had not done that since the academy. He wished he had not sarcastically mentioned hunting as an excuse in front of his team, because he was probably going to look like an idiot. Thankfully for the blonde, he was already covered in blood, and his lack of expertise was made up for with inhuman dexterity and strength, so he was able to get under the hide and remove some cuts of meat from the shoulders. Unfortunately, Naruto didn't have much to actually carry it with, so he holstered his weapon and wrapped the meat up in gauze. The other three kept an eye out for other animals or ninja while he worked, and soon the 4 genin were ready to go. Sasuke immediately led them to a river and pointed to it. "Give me the bear meat, clean yourself, and try to mask that coppery scent that clings to you," he ordered. Naruto handed over the meat with a pout, then he looked into the river. "If I die in here, I'm gonna kick your ass," he told the Uchiha seriously, who rolled his eyes at the seemingly absurd threat. Then the blonde took off his tool pouch and shuriken holster, leaving them with his Nokojiri Boko, before he hopped into the water with his bloody clothes still on. Sasuke set up a fire and started cooking the bear meat while Sakura and Karen kept watch. The 2 kunoichi set up some traps. Soon enough, Naruto was mostly clean, not quite as clean as he came into the forest, but not soaked in blood at least. The blonde sat near the fire Sasuke had set up to dry while he smelled the cooking bear meat. He closed his eyes and listened to the forest of death. It was nothing like the woods near Tazuna's house, or the other training grounds around Konohagakure no Sato, but after killing that bear and having some time to adjust, he was growing a bit more comfortable. Karen sat down near the fire and looked at Naruto warily. "I have some spare gauze if you used all yours for this," she offered with a gesture to the discarded wrappings that had been used to carry the meat. "They were just taking up space," Naruto answered, dismissing the offer. "Oh yeah, Naruto doesn't even need bandages," Sakura remembered. "He's an Uzumaki. I once saw a cut heal before my very eyes," she recalled. Sasuke sighed. "Sakura, I know she's an ally right now, but could you not give away our abilities like that?" he requested dryly. The girl flushed at the admonishment and nodded meekly. Karen frowned at Naruto. "Uzumaki have red hair," she said automatically, then she withdrew on herself. that's what I heard. She muttered as an excuse. She was also pretty sure the vitality of the Uzumaki was not usually a full-on healing factor, but she kept that to herself. Naruto looked up as he pulled some blonde hair over his Hittite. Maybe it turns red? He wondered. It sort of is. He muttered. That's blood, Sakura pointed out. Yeah, I know. Naruto sighed in response. I have the vitality and the clan name though, plus this white swirl thing that I think Gigi said had something to do with it. He said as he looked at the white spiral symbol on his left sleeve. Sakura frowned. Are you calling Hokage-sama that still? She asked, and the blonde nodded. I guess he would know. She mused. You shouldn't call him that though. She scolded. Naruto rolled his eyes. Well, I am kind of his ward, he grumbled. Sasuke stopped. Orphans are normally wards of the village, he said. It was known to him. As Uchiha, I am a ward of my clan, so I look after myself mostly, but I've had adults who owed my clan looking after my estate. He explained. Why are you the Sandaime Hokage's ward? He asked. Sakura blinked in confusion. The Hokage would not have any time to actually personally look after Naruto, so the distinction between a ward of the village and a ward of the Kage seemed strangely pointless. Karen was curious now, since clearly they'd stumbled on something to do with the Uzumaki. Naruto frowned. I don't know, he lied. He was pretty sure it was to do with the Kyuubi. Normal orphans have birth records, right? Maybe it's something to do with that. He tried to deflect. Unfortunately, the blonde deflected poorly. You don't have birth records? Karen asked wide-eyed. Sakura frowned. I thought your birthday was in October though? She asked. The 10th. Sasuke recalled, the night of the Kitsune attack. He mused. That would destroy hospital records, but then just how durable are you? He asked. Even then, I thought all the records ended up getting restored? Sakura asked. She could have sworn that had happened. You must be remembering wrong, Naruto insisted. He did not like the direction the conversation was going. Uzumaki are just built different. He added to the Uchiha, and Karen narrowed her eyes at him. It sounded too much like an excuse to her. The three genin dropped their inquisition for now, and soon enough the four ninja were sharing a meal of grilled bear meat. Once they were finished and washed their faces and hands of the greasy meat, the Uchiha made sure the fire he'd made wouldn't spread. I'll leave the leftovers here with the fire burning. The longer any trackers are watching this place, the better for us, Sasuke decided before he crossed the river with a leap. The other three genin followed him as they started looking for other teams. Karen kept an eye out for her own team with worry. She hoped they didn't run into each other at all actually, but she knew that was unlikely. She was probably lucky they hadn't approached the fire Sasuke had started while they were still cooking, but they likely would be one of the teams who would. With any luck, they'd be too busy fighting the other teams who checked the place out to do anything like tracking. It was only the first day still when things went wrong. A wind picked up in the distance and made a howling sound as it went through the trees and leaves, bending them to creak and whine. For a moment the sound reminded Naruto of the depths beneath Konoha and he froze up. Then the wind actually hit his team, and he realized it was much worse. The blonde took some notice that Karen had been sent flying as well and tried to keep track of where she was going was in relation to where he was going, since Sasuke and Sakura seemed to have kept their feet okay. Naruto tucked his chin and shoulders in before he hit the ground and rolled to his feet. His eyes darted around and immediately caught sight of a massive snake. He grabbed his Nokojiriboko and unfolded it with an upwards flick of his arm as quickly as he could, just in time to place the full length of the weapon in the maw of the striking serpent. The blonde was sent skidding back. He tried to focus his chakra and finally came to a halt. The snake seemed rather confused, and then it tugged at him and the blonde realized it was stuck, so he held firm. As he wrestled with the snake, he pulled out his gun. He knew it would give away his position, but he doubted a kunai would deal with such a monstrous serpent. However, when Naruto shot the snake, it disappeared in a cloud of smoke, some of the mercury inside his bullet dropping from where it had struck the snake. The blonde's eye twitched as he registered he'd wasted a bullet on what was possibly a chakra construct, and now he only had 3 left. What kind of ninja uses a gun? Naruto turned to the voice and saw a Kusa shinobi so skinny he could see the bones of his arms, dressed fairly normally, with basic black gi with white trim over a mesh shirt, fingerless black gloves, a thick light-colored lavender rope tied around his waist, and a very creepy-looking mask that looked like it was supposed to evoke the idea of a zombie. The Hittite with his symbol was strapped to a conical straw hat, which had a tag that read punishment. The blonde considered his answer. "Are you here for Karen?" he asked to stall for time. "Who?" the man asked as he tilted his head to the side, which technically answered the question in a way. "Well," Naruto said as he casually slipped his gun back into his tool pouch, "I best be getting back to my team," he said, but the man dropped down in front of him. "Oh, I don't think you'll be doing that," the masked shinobi said menacingly as he began to weave hand signs. Naruto leaped and swung his weapon, but the saw-toothed blade reduced his target to a black mist with no resistance. Then Naruto couldn't see anything. He could still breathe and move, but he couldn't smell anything, and the only thing he could hear was his own heartbeat. Frantically his eyes darted around uselessly, trying to find a source of darkness. "Ha! This genjutsu would be superior to the silent killing of Kirigakure," the voice of the enemy echoed around the blonde. "However, against more competent shinobi, genjutsu tends to be a bit harder to use. You don't seem to have any way to deal with this inability to see, HM?" the voice mocked. Naruto felt pain. Something sharp had cut into his left shoulder. He recalled Zabuza mentioned something was important there, the subclavian artery. He hoped a shallow cut wasn't enough to actually hit it as he tried to figure out how to deal with his current opponent. "My genjutsu robs the target of all sensation besides touch," the voice spoke again. "Some I don't even have to cut, just the threat that I can do whatever I want unimpeded combined with the sensory deprivation is enough for most to go mad," he taunted. Naruto waited for another attack. He focused, and when he felt something rustle his clothing, he stepped back on his right foot to feel a blade cut through his clothes and cut his right side. He lifted Nokojuriboko up to his left and swung it open in the direction he'd felt the attack. He felt some resistance, and he was pretty sure he hit flesh instead of steel. "What?" the voice sounded startled. "How are you able to keep a cool head in this situation?" he demanded to know. It sounded like being hit had tilted the assassin. Naruto shifted his stance. "You're hardly the scariest thing to try to kill me," he excused calmly. "Still, a genjutsu that defeats most of my senses is a real pain, you know," he acknowledged. It was weird to talk and still not truly hear anything. Then the blonde got an idea that he wouldn't try if he wasn't immortal, that he wouldn't risk if it wasn't for Uzumaki vitality and old blood. Instead of dodging when he felt the next attack, he braced himself and twisted slightly. The blade was a lot thinner than his. Probably a tanto or ninjato, the boy guessed the latter as the length slid through his torso. Naruto hoped that had not hit any important organs as he lifted his left hand and gripped the hand holding the weapon in his torso. "Got you," he proclaimed proudly as he brought his Nokojuriboko up and swung it down to the left. The genjutsu ended in a spray of blood as the cleaving edge of Naruto's weapon sank into the left shoulder of his zombie-masked opponent with the sound of cracked bone and rent flesh. The blonde tore his weapon free of the dying man and took the ninjato out of his torso with a wince. What are you?" Naruto looked down at the ninja who asked him that. "I'm not sure myself," he confessed before he put the tip of the ninjato through the owner's throat and left him there. He had to find Karen and his team. If that guy had teammates just as scary as he was, then his team was in danger. For a moment he thought Karen would be fine since they were both Kusa. Then the blonde heard a scream and bolted in that direction. He was pretty sure that had been Karen's voice, and he wondered why he had thought anyone but him would be safe in a forest like the one he was in. The blonde saw the source of the commotion. A bald shinobi was holding Karen up by the throat. The man had dark purple lipstick, wearing a dark gray tattered cloak over a black jumpsuit, and his own thick white robe hanging around his shoulders. He had a similar hat to the last ninja the blonde fought, but its tag said crime. Naruto frowned. "Hey!" he called out, and the man turned with a surprised expression. "I don't know what your problem is with a member of your own village," but he began, but the man tossed Karen aside and threw handfuls of saban one hand after the other. Naruto dodged the first volley and the second, but his new opponent switched up tactics and dropped a smoke bomb. That stalled the blonde a bit as he waited for an attack, but said attack being a hail of single-bladed shuriken from above was unexpected. The blonde narrowly avoided any blades in his head, neck or spine, but the blades digging into his shoulders were concerning. Naruto reached up and pulled two of them out of his right shoulder to give his weapon arm back some mobility as he turned to glare at the bald ninja. The man seemed on edge, alert and alarmed. Naruto realized why. Your teammate is dead, he said simply. The guy with the freaky mask and genjutsu, he clarified. That was annoying. Is your annoying trick to throw a bunch of blades at me and hope it puts me down? He asked. Karen shivered from her position, shifting herself further from the fight as she watched nervously. Naruto, when there was nothing to fight, seemed nervous, easily startled, and jumpy. With an enemy in front of him, however, the blonde was downright disturbing. The bald, lipstick-wearing man leaped as he palmed a pair of kunai. Naruto dashed to meet him and swung his extended nokojiriboko down into the left shoulder of his airborne opponent. A familiar cracking sound of bones breaking under his weapon and a spray of blood over his face had Naruto sigh in content before he lifted his right foot and kicked the corpse of his opponent off the end of his blade. Karen flinched at the disrespectful display, sure the guy had been about to kill her, and she hoped that was all, but still seeing a human corpse treated like a sack of meat was a bit disturbing to the young kunoichi. The red-eyed girl gulped audibly, which was apparently enough to remind the blonde she was there. Naruto jolted, looked at the girl wide-eyed like he'd been caught doing something wrong and immediately averted his eyes. Karen stared incredulously. His entire demeanor changed and his killing intent was suppressed. The red-haired girl realized immediately that was not normal. Killing intent should not blanket an area like that or need to be suppressed. She tried to analyze the situation, but it was just too strange. We should get back to my team. The third member of this team is probably attacking them at this rate. Naruto spoke up finally. You, know these guys? He added hesitantly. Karen realized why. He felt guilty about killing in self-defense. I thought I did. But that wasn't. She began before she stopped, unsure how to explain it. It's not a henge. She realized as she approached the corpse of the man. The face wasn't sitting quite right now that she looked closer. She lifted the face to reveal another underneath that Karen didn't recognize at all. Wait, he was wearing someone else's face? Naruto asked. Karen nodded numbly. I think your team might be in danger. She realized someone had invaded the Chunin exams. The thought occurred to her that the skills to accomplish that were in fact Jonin level, yet Naruto had killed 2 of the 3 infiltrators. Karen decided to stick with the blonde Uzumaki for a bit longer. Despite the apparent danger, he didn't seem to want to hurt her. She'd just have to get used to how wrong his chakra felt. She tried not to think about how it left a coppery aftertaste in her mouth just feeling it, or how it filled her with a primal fear. Chapter 13, Forest of Death, Watered with Blood. Karen was glad to feel Sasuke's chakra ahead as she followed Naruto. She thought the Uchiha felt like a bright beacon of power. Then she felt who he was fighting and her stomach dropped. She compared what she could feel and managed to push herself to follow the blonde genin. Naruto's chakra still felt scarier than whoever was up ahead. That was not exactly a guarantee, but Karen noticed how the blonde genin's clothes were cut, yet under the blood she could tell he was unharmed. She made a note to scold him about the safety of using a weapon to drench himself in blood with open wounds. Didn't he know he could get diseases from that? Regardless, the Kusa Kunoichi was certain that the blonde could not actually be matched for pure ferocity. It was almost bestial how he leaned forward and leaped towards the fight between his team, mostly Sasuke, and whoever was wearing Shiro's face. Karen didn't actually like Shiro. She had honestly been a bit of a bitch, but still Karen wouldn't wish having her face stolen and used by an enemy like that on people she hated, let alone people who were a bit annoying to be around. Naruto swung his Nokojiriboko as he extended it, the metallic sound alerting his target, who turned to catch the cleaving edge to the face. It was momentarily a very brutal display. Teeth and blood flew. Naruto turned away because he could not smell blood and swung his arm out of the resulting cloud of smoke to smack the log off his weapon by smacking it against the tree he was standing on. The blonde looked up the tree and saw the enemy shinobi wearing a Kusa Kunoichi's face, Naruto. Sakura cried out in surprise. She hadn't expected to be happy to see the red-eyed blonde. Wait, that was weird. Sasuke was the one who developed red eyes fighting against the enemy, so why did Naruto have them too? The pink-haired girl looked to Sasuke and examined the differences. She decided first of all that Sasuke's were definitely more attractive with the Tomo, while Naruto's made him look a bit like he was related to the Inuzuka almost. So you dealt with them already? Naruto did not like how confident his new opponent was. You think all this blood is mine? The blonde asked as he flicked his arm and pressed the mechanism to snap his blade folded shut again, his stance shifting slightly with the movement, and his killing intent increasing. The older shinobi looked surprised before they smiled. Oh my, where have you been? They crooned. Sakura thought that was the most creepy and predatory way the kunoichi could have put that. Could you take off that lady's face, Yaju? Naruto requested, earning a raised eyebrow each from his teammates, and Karen at the nickname, before his teammates' eyes widened in disgust at the implication. I suppose it's high time. The shinobi agreed, tearing off the kunoichi's face and revealing skin that was unnaturally pale, golden eyes with slit pupils like the ones in Naruto's currently red eyes, and purple eye makeup. I am Orochimaru, of the Sannin. He introduced. Now, I was here for Sasuke-kun, but why don't you tell me what you've been up to, Naruto-kun? He requested. I doubt the Sandaime Hokage sent you down there. Was it Danzo? Sakura was confused, wondering what was going on. Sasuke took a moment to catch his breath as he listened. He was curious since his blonde teammate had been a mystery since they graduated the academy. Naruto did not like this, his hackles raised as he glared. He did not like the stranger knew his name, he did not like they knew about the depths, he did not like that the man had been attacking his teammate, and he hated the Serpentine man for threatening to expose his secret in front of his team and a girl he'd only recently met. The blonde's eyes darkened. Quite literally his eyelids darkened along with his whisker marks as he began to crouch. Rather than make a one-handed seal, the blonde splayed his hand on the wood as he clung to the tree more closely. He focused his chakra. Sasuke's eyes widened as instead of yellow he saw red chakra when Naruto leaped. The blonde was almost too fast for his Sharingan, but Orochimaru evaded with another Kawarimi. This log splintered as Naruto's saw blade ripped into the wood and sent the pieces flying. Naruto turned as his left hand palmed a kunai from his shuriken holster. Orochimaru coiled around the tree up at the blonde like a serpent. Naruto stopped adhering to the tree and let gravity carry him down as he flicked his blade open in a swing at the Serpentine man. However, the right hand of the Sannin gripped his blade, much to his surprise, and he was thrown through the air. Naruto cried out in pain as his back hit the tree. The other genin couldn't help but think it sounded too bestial to come from a young human though. And when Orochimaru swung again, the blonde released his weapon and flipped through the air. He reached out with his right hand, grabbed a branch, and pulled himself into a low crouch with a snarl at the one who disarmed him. The Sannin inspected the weapon, marvelous, older than the village itself but still in working order. He mused. Naruto flicked his kunai to his right hand and palmed a second with his left, then he focused his chakra and leaped. Orochimaru deftly dodged and kicked the blonde in the head, but to his surprise the left-hand kunai of the blonde genin sliced open the back of his right shin as the boy went sailing through the air. The man watched as the blonde twisted, tucked, and rolled to his feet ready to go again. I believe the purpose of this weapon is to put down Yaju. Orochimaru asked with a smug smirk. But do I kill you now? It would be inconvenient for me. He mused as he tested the weight of the Nokojiriboko. Naruto was reminded of the beast with the antlers he had died to a lot. He wondered if dying would get his weapon back. Nothing in the depths had ever actually tried to disarm him, but this man could do it easily. The blonde got angrier. His chakra seemed to respond as if his rage was a form of focus. Naruto charged again, unable to think clearly through the red haze. Orochimaru swung the Nokojiriboko and the blonde felt the saw-toothed edge of his own weapon rip from his right shoulder down to his left hip in a spray of blood. Naruto! Sakura and Karen both cried out in horror as Sasuke stared in shock. The Uchiha's Sharingan burned the vision of Naruto being mortally wounded into his brain. The Sannin wasn't even done. His tongue lengthened impossibly and gripped the blonde. Orochimaru chuckled. Blood. I suppose to your kind it tastes sweeter. He mused and the blonde shivered that this man knew that he wasn't human. Then he plunged 5 flaming fingers into Naruto's navel. I'll make this an experiment. Let's see if you survive. Karen heard those words, but she knew the man had to be mocking the boy, and his team and her, because not even an Uzumaki could survive those wounds. Then the man just let the blonde drop. All 3 genin moved, but to their surprise he flipped in mid-air and landed on his feet. Are you still conscious? Or was that more akin to a cat landing on their feet? Orochimaru asked curiously. The human body doesn't quite have the structure to pull that off unconsciously, so if you're unconscious I might just have to take you back and dissect you. He mused. Naruto was awake. Of course he was awake. Despite the agony being the worst pain he had ever felt, only death or his silver bell could let him sleep. Unconscious? He asked. I don't think my brain has gotten real rest in weeks. What makes you think pain will knock me out? Orochimaru raised an eyebrow. Consciousness is ironically the more impossible conclusion. I just used a few ninjutsu that locked away a large chunk of chakra. The damage to your Kurakuki should cause enough pain to knock anyone out, plus the sudden exhaustion is much like anemia. He explained. Naruto frowned. You use a lot of big words I don't get, but that did hurt about as much as dying. He agreed blandly, not thinking about what he said. I gave you a sucking chest wound and caused the symptoms of anemia, Orochimaru pointed out. Or did I miscalculate, and I'm not talking to Naruto-kun? He mused, noticing that while the boy's eyes were blue the pupils were still slit. Naruto frowned as his chest wound slowly sealed itself. He did feel lightheaded, so he had trouble comprehending things. Who else is going to be talking with my mouth? He asked, then he blinked. Wait, can the kitsune do that? He asked. Orochimaru laughed at the baffled, wounded young genin. Oh, you had no idea? Of course the Kyuubi no Yoko can speak through you. He could act through you too if you aren't careful, but my little Fuin should have put a stop to that. He explained. Karen, Sasuke, and Sakura's eyes widened. Oh, that's why his Uzumaki healing factor is so absurd. The Uchiha realized. Yes, that. Naruto agreed with a nod. He was having trouble focusing. The edges of his vision were fuzzy. He kind of wanted to see the doll again, but he couldn't die in front of his team. Orochimaru hummed as he considered the weapon. Well, this will end up in my hands soon enough. He decided before he lodged the blade in the tree he was standing and then disappeared with Shunshin. Naruto's vision flashed white as an elbow impacted the back of his skull. Impossibly, he managed to catch his fall with his hands. A bit of blood sprayed from his chest wound to the ground beneath him at the movement, but the bleeding had slowed and his body was pulling itself together. Orochimaru was on Sasuke next. The Uchiha defended himself again, even better than before, the Sannin noted. Only awakened recently, the Sharingan had 3 tomo total between 2 eyes. Now there were 2 in each eye. It still was not enough. The Uchiha was still tired from before and had not deactivated his Sharingan. When Sasuke's back hit a tree, Orochimaru weaved hand signs. His neck extended out, and he bit the young genin on the right side of his neck near the shoulder. Naruto reached into his tool pouch and pulled out his first aid kit. He opened it as Karen approached to assist the shaky-handed boy, but halted when she saw him pull out a strange blood vial and jam the needle into his chest next to the wound. Without any mechanism, the blood ejected the vial and went into Naruto's body as if sucked up. His wound healed faster. The boy was glad whatever Fuin had been used hadn't messed with his blood abilities. Then he saw Karen staring and turned paler than he already was. His head darted around in time to see Sasuke fall and Orochimaru disappear. Sakura ran over to the Uchiha and shook him while calling his name. Don't tell them, Naruto begged as he put his medical supplies away and began to stand, wincing away from the touch of the red head when she moved towards him. I won't, Karen agreed hesitantly, but you have to tell me. She insisted as she attempted to help him up again. He didn't seem to need it but accepted the assistance as they moved over to Sakura. Naruto supposed it would be weird if he could walk on his own after injuries like that. Sakura looked up as they approached. Naruto? She asked. She looked a bit scared. The blonde had no idea he had slit pupils still. I'm alive, he said dryly. He wasn't sure exactly how true that was, but he breathed and had a heartbeat. Also, he was in a lot of pain. From what he recalled, dying tended to actually stop the pain no matter how traumatic the events tended to be. I did what I could. Karen lied. I know some Irian ninjutsu. Why don't you get Naruto-kun's weapon while I check on Sasuke-kun? She asked. Sakura frowned. Having Karen come along had been her idea, but the familiarity and usefulness of the girl caught her off guard. She couldn't help but feel a little threatened, but she nodded. The blonde would probably need his weapon if anyone showed up while Sasuke was still down. The pink-haired kunoichi hesitated as she glanced at Naruto. He looked awful. Pale with blood loss, shivering, and covered in blood. Sakura wondered how much the boy would even be able to fight as he was, but she got his weapon for him anyway. They couldn't exactly leave it behind and they needed to move. It wasn't until they'd found shelter in the hollow of a tree's roots that Karen had the opportunity to ask Naruto what she had seen. Sakura was busy setting up traps and was trusting the Kusa Kunoichi to watch her two injured male teammates. Karen wasn't sure where to begin. Are you really Uzumaki? She asked quietly, and the blonde nodded. You better not be lying to me, because to reintroduce myself, my name is Karen Uzumaki, she said sternly. Naruto's eyes widened in alarm. We're dash, he began. I don't know, we definitely aren't closely related. Karen interrupted him. Also, Uzumaki don't heal like that, she added with a pointed look at his chest. Kitsune magic. Naruto decided on his excuse with a firm nod. Oh no, your team might buy that, but I saw that blood vial. Karen denied with a shake of her head. Also, that guy said he locked that power up with some fuinjutsu, meaning you did something else, she accused. Naruto thought of another excuse, kinjutsu. He said, it certainly felt forbidden. Karen frowned in concern and confusion. There's a kinjutsu that lets you heal by injecting blood directly into your body without needing to worry about hitting a vein? She asked incredulously. She tried to recall what she knew of kinjutsu, but given her limited knowledge, for all she knew that was how it worked. Why do you even have that? She asked. Sounds like Iryokinjutsu? She added the last part in a mutter. Naruto opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. If he tried to claim he was a human super weapon, his team, sensei, and Hokage would all deny it. I stole it. He confessed contritely. Technically that had happened. The blood had been freely given though, so it was still a lie. Karen sighed. Why did you steal such a kinjutsu? She asked without looking at him anymore. The blonde frowned. Well, I guess I didn't know what I was stealing, you know. He excused. I wanted so badly to be a strong ninja. I didn't really think about the consequences until it was too late. So now on top of the Uzumaki and the Kyuubi, I'm another level of different. He explained. I really am an accidentally made super weapon. He mused as he leaned his back against the wood. Karen frowned. So, the Yondaime Hokage didn't intentionally put the Kyuubi there? She asked, and the blonde's eyes widened. He had not actually given much if any thought to the man who placed the kitsune where it was supposed to be. He needed somewhere to put it. Naruto guessed with a shrug. Blonde baby who miraculously survives the destruction of his hospital thanks to Uzumaki genetic lottery wins the destiny lottery of having a mountain-sized chakra no Bakemono locked in his Kirakuki. He joked mirthlessly. Karen bit her lower lip before she looked up. Are you okay? She asked. Naruto got asked that a lot lately. I'm fine. He answered automatically. He was still a bit sore, but he knew he'd be ready to fight again within an hour. Naruto! Sakura snapped as she approached the two. Are you opening up to a temporary ally before a cell member? She asked, sounding vaguely hurt. Naruto winced guiltily. I guess the kitsune is out of the bag and she asked first, he said casually, hoping that was all she heard. Sakura huffed before she sat down and hugged her knees, then she turned to Karen. How are they? She asked. Karen sighed. Naruto-kun is more worried about his secrets being out than the damage he's taken, and I haven't even bothered looking at his fuinjutsu. Not that I can make sense of this one on Sasuke-kun, she explained. Sakura stiffened. So that mark is fuinjutsu? She asked quietly. Karen nodded. I think so. I can't think of what else it would be, but I don't really know much about fuinjutsu, so I can only treat the symptoms. She answered. Fever, sweating, and he seems to be in pain. She clarified. I don't think we should risk giving him any painkillers, not even ibuprofen. She explained. Sakura nodded hesitantly. I guess I'll just keep a cold head cloth on Sasuke-kun and wait for him to ride it out. She asked, and the redhead nodded. What about Naruto? Karen tensed. He's strangely asymptomatic, she confessed warily. Sakura frowned. His pupils are not normally slit like that. She disagreed. My pupils are what now? I mean he's healthy. Karen clarified with some annoyance. She hadn't wanted to stress the blonde any further. He's paler from blood loss but isn't suffering any anemia, or at least not any symptoms he'll admit to. She said the last bit with some bitterness. Sakura frowned. Well, why didn't that Fuinjutsu work then? She asked, and the two other conscious genins stared at her blankly. The one on Naruto? It didn't work, right? She clarified. I dunno, it's Fuinjutsu. Probably just doesn't work because of star alignments or something. Naruto latched onto the lie too quickly for Karen to be entirely comfortable with it. Sakura remained silent for a moment so no one spoke, then the pink-haired girl started to squirm while staring at Naruto. Finally she lost patience and leaned forward to slap the ground, startling the blonde into meeting her eyes. I'm sorry, I didn't notice you were a Jinchuriki, she said quickly. Naruto blinked owlishly. I'm a what? He asked. Stop stressing my patient, Karen hissed. Sakura flushed red in embarrassment and lowered her eyes. Sorry, that's what I read once. Someone who has a chakra no Bakemono or other spirit locked in their Kirakuki is called a Jinchuriki. She explained herself. While I was setting up traps, I was thinking back to the academy, and I remembered everything I read, and how Jinchuriki get their name from the fact that their normal lives are sacrificed to turn them into living super weapons. She rambled, thinking about that, and how you were in the academy, and what you thought a date should be, and how you've been since you graduated, and I just realized I should apologize because I never noticed you just wanted to be normal and have friends. Naruto was almost as red as the pink-haired girl from the long-winded apology. Just having it directed at him had been embarrassing. It's fine. He tried to excuse her. It is not fine, Sakura snapped. No wonder you have such a hero complex. Your life is literally already dedicated to keeping the village safe from that, she said, and while the blonde knew she meant the kitsune, he thought of the beasts in the depths. Karen felt like she had just been privy to something very personal, but figured she was in for the long haul by that point. While we're airing secrets, I'm an Uzumaki too, she told the girl with a gesture to her red hair. I was a bit scared to mention it before. She confessed at the surprised look she received. Naruto sent his relative a grateful nod for breaking the tension. Sakura misinterpreted the nod. You knew? She asked. I told him earlier, Karen explained. It's part of why he was willing to confide in me, she clarified. Oh, Sakura said, so being able to hold the Kyubi no Yoko is an Uzumaki thing then, right? She asked, because I swear that's what Mito Uzumaki was famous for, the Shodai Hokage's wife. I cannot believe I never looked into that name before, she explained and finished the last part with a shake of her head. Karen's eyes widened. I forgot that was a thing. She muttered, I guess so, it might be Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, but I mean, Naruto-kun, and I won't know it, she pointed out with a shrug. Sakura paled. We need to protect Naruto, she said simply. How do you know the kitsune won't just die if I die? Naruto asked dryly. If not for what he'd felt while fighting Orochimaru, he'd almost believed the Yoko already was gone. Sakura paled further as her eyes widened in alarm and horror. Don't think like that, she snapped. The term Jinchuriki was bad enough without the blonde thinking his death would remove the monster from the world. Naruto rolled his eyes. How about we don't focus on what happens if I die, he decided, and the two kunoichi nodded in agreement. And I dunno, he confessed with a shrug. You two sleep, I guess I'll keep watch. Sakura frowned again as she glared at the blonde. No, you sleep, she insisted. You actually fought. I just set up some traps, she said. I can't, Naruto retorted with a shrug, and the kunoichi slumped back against the inside of the tree hollow. She recalled he couldn't sleep around others, but it hadn't occurred to her until that moment how big of a problem that was for their current situation. I know you aren't comfortable enough around people to sleep, Sakura said sadly, and the blonde felt another tinge of guilt. But you're the only chance we actually have of surviving if an enemy team shows up, she confessed. I may have been top kunoichi in the academy, but I don't think I can fight at this level. I don't think I fully appreciated what Kabuto-san meant when he said everyone had sent their elite. He didn't mean people like me, he meant people like Sasuke-kun or you. Naruto scratched his cheek bashfully. While it was nice to have his strength acknowledged, how he had gained that strength being praised left a slightly sour taste in his mouth. Karen, however, was messing with her own first aid kit. I think I have some strong sedatives, she muttered. catching the attention of the other two genin. This should work regardless of Uzumaki physiology, she assured as she held up a small vial. Naruto shook his head. I appreciate the thought, but I'll be fine. He denied the chemical assistance. I can last a few days without sleep and still be combat capable. I killed Mizuki-sensei without sleeping for 3 days. He revealed the last part a bit dryly. Karen looked worried to Sakura. Wait, why did you kill Mizuki-sensei again? The Haruno asked, which only concerned the Kusa Kunoichi further. He turned traitor and tricked me into stealing some scroll from Hokage Jiji. Karen took a moment to replay the words in her head a few times. You stole from the Sandaime Hokage and got away with it? She asked. Naruto considered the question. I guess so. He realized with a wry smile. Karen turned to Sakura with a sudden look of sympathy and understanding, but also a hint of jealousy. Her team outpaced her too, but at least Sakura's teammates seemed nice mostly. Naruto was scary, sure, but she understood why to an extent now at least. Sakura sighed in resignation finally. Alright, fine. She agreed finally. Better she was rested so she could at least support him than they both be exhausted. Karen nodded in agreement, and soon the blonde was the only one awake tending to the cloth on Sasuke's head. As Naruto waited, he lifted his Nokojiriboko and inspected the edges. He'd felt its saw-toothed edge personally that day and had even almost lost the weapon to Orochimaru. He vaguely recalled that Sannin was supposed to be an impressive title, but he couldn't remember anything about it. But the true face of the man matched a description he recalled. The blonde still remembered the strange old man who gave him the old blood. He'd mentioned by description 2 people he had seen in the depths, and Orochimaru matched one of those. Worse, the Serpentine man definitely knew too much about that place beneath Konoha. He knew Naruto had been altered, that the weapon came from down there. However, from the way Orochimaru spoke, he also did not truly understand it at all. He didn't know the blood conveyed a form of immortality, or had at least implied a lack of knowledge regarding such a thing. The idea of the golden-eyed man learning Naruto was immortal because of the old blood made the blonde shiver. That man had mentioned dissection without knowing even that much as it was. The blonde was certain that the dream, his immortality, and the doll could never be described to normal humans. If he kept the beasts in the depths, then he would never even need to explain that much. He just needed to hunt them to keep them from ascending to the surface. Maybe drive them deeper if he could. Naruto caught his reflection in the metal of his weapon. The moonlight illuminated his eyes. Blue as always, but the pupils, while rounder than they had been earlier that day, were more bestial than before. In the light of the moon they constricted more to slits from ovals. The blonde Uzumaki sighed and stared up at the moon through the trees. He wondered if it was bright enough for everyone else to see just fine too, or if that was another sign of his inhuman abilities. Unfortunately, staring at the moon made the blonde agitated. For some reason it made where his navel had been struck by that strange Fuinjutsu ache. By morning Naruto's eyes had bags under them again and his hair was wilder than ever. He was still a bit bloody and his clothes revealed where he had been wounded, but aside from the torn clothes and dried blood it was hard to tell he had even been hurt. Naruto refused to get rid of the jacket though. Knowing they weren't sold anymore, he was determined to repair it. Unknowingly, the torn and bloody jacket over torn and bloodied shirt and a healed chest wound was an intimidating sight to spying shinobi. At some point a squirrel entered the clearing in front of the hollow, but thankfully Sakura was already awake and threw a kunai to scare it away from her traps. Naruto frowned since it looked like something was stuck to its back, but he couldn't make it out. After that the 3 Oto genin from the first phase arrived. Naruto groaned in exaggerated exasperation. What now? He snapped. You better have the chi no show. He added under his breath as he stood. We're here for Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto glanced at his male teammate, still unconscious and sweaty. He's busy, you can take a number, he retorted sarcastically. The bandaged-faced genin chuckled at his humor. We really must insist. We have business with him, you see, he explained. Yeah, we have to kill the bastard. Naruto glanced at the one with the kanji for death on his shirt 3 times. Why not 4 times? He asked, and the Oto genin looked confused. You know, for like the number, death like when you get killed. You have the kanji 3 times. He pointed out, it was one of the few kanji he knew, so it bothered him a little. The Oto ninja with the death shirt looked annoyed by the questions. Would you quit stalling? We're here to kill Sasuke, not make small talk with his cronies, the boy snapped. Naruto's eye twitched. Alright, you want to act like Yaju, he began as he lifted his no Kojiriboko, then I'll cut you down like one. He threatened, but it wasn't until he lowered his stance that his killing intent actually hit the 3 Oto Genin. The Oto Genin who had spoken crassly covered his fear with anger. You think you can, punk? He dared as he lifted his hands at the blonde, small holes in his palms, Zankaha. He declared, and from the holes the blonde heard a strange ringing sound, then the air rippled, the ground tore between them. Naruto tensed up as he realized if he dodged that the tree hollow would be hit. I've got Sasuke-kun. Sakura cried out, and he saw red hair move, but he was too late to dodge, and took the hit against his guard. Ha! Direct hit! Naruto's eye twitched. That had hurt, but it wasn't exactly a big deal. It hadn't even cut him. You want to see a real attack? He asked as he gathered chakra to his feet. What the hell are you, Dash? Sokka, look out! The bandaged-faced Genin tried to warn his teammate, but Naruto already pounced, the ground cracking beneath his chakra-enhanced leap. He extended his Nokojiriboko into the left shoulder of his prey, and sweet blood sprayed over him. Kind of funny how such a simple attack works the best. Naruto mused as he yanked his weapon free and turned to face the remaining 2 Oto Genin. Both looked suitably intimidated by that point. Dosu, the kunoichi, spoke up. I think we should quit, she said simply. The bandaged-faced Genin scowled under his face wraps. I think we'd die if we did, he snapped. Naruto frowned at that. If his opponents were being compelled to fight him out of fear of another, that made killing them feel a little different. A bad kind of different that he didn't like. Do you need somewhere to hide? He asked. Do not go heroic now, Sakura snapped at him. It sounds like they're being coerced though, Naruto responded. Where did you learn the word coerced? Sakura cried out in alarm, holding her hand up to her mouth aghast. Naruto rolled his eyes. Oh, come on, I'm not that illiterate, he grumbled in complaint. With words, it's a lack of verbosity, Karen supplied helpfully. Dosu looked exasperated. We can't pass the test, but we can still kill Sasuke, he insisted angrily. Can you? Naruto asked dryly as he pointed his extended Nokojiriboko at the remaining male Oto Genin. Can you really? He added with narrowed eyes. Dosu considered his options, and immediately swung his gauntlet-clad right arm at the blonde. Naruto moved to dodge, but it was effectively impossible for him to dodge sound. A high-pitched whine assaulted the ears of the blonde, and he doubled over in pain. Yeah, I think I can, Dosu said smugly as he delivered a left hook to the blonde Genin. It doesn't matter how fast you are against sound, and it doesn't matter how tough either, he proclaimed as he thrust his right arm at the blonde again. Against my Kyomiai Supika, any human is defenseless, not that you can hear this explanation anymore, he finished mockingly. Sakura and Karen watched in horror. Naruto grit his teeth in pain as he stumbled back. He swayed unsteadily on his feet as his vision swam, but he could still vaguely hear Dosu speaking. The blonde sighed morosely at the reminder that he simply was not a normal human anymore. Then a green-clad blur appeared between the 2 fighting Genin and kicked the bandaged one in the bandaged face to knock him back. Now what? Dosu snapped at the newcomer. Lee stood there in a fighting stance ready to go. Konoha no Utsukushiki Aoyaju, he said, and the blonde flinched at the term at the end. Rock Lee. The Genin finished his introduction. The Oto Kunoichi looked over the competition. I still think we should just cut our losses, she told her teammate. I doubt we'll be killed for backing off at this point, she added. Kin, if you tried to leave, I'm telling him you defected, Dosu said blandly, and the girl flinched. Defect? I would never, Kin denied hotly. I'm suggesting a tactical retreat, you jackass. Zaku is dead, she pointed out. Lee had not expected his presence to result in the enemy debating retreat. Would you guys just give me your scroll and leave already? Naruto asked impatiently. The 2 Oto Genin stared at the blonde for a moment. He can hear us, Dosu realized. Yes, your stupid gauntlet sucks, Kin retorted dryly. It had not worked well against the blonde either time. No, Dosu snapped. What the hell is going on here? he exclaimed as he lifted his arm and glared at the hole-filled gauntlet, then at the blonde. What are you? He demanded accusingly. Uzumaki are built different. Naruto excused, grateful that Karen would not be contradicting him on that. That does not fully explain it, Dosa denied angrily. Just give me your scroll. Naruto snapped back with equal anger. Will you explain how you withstood those sound waves if I do? Naruto stared incredulously at the other genin for the offer. Yes. He lied. The Odo genin pulled out a chi no sho and tossed it. Lee looked vaguely disappointed as the blonde caught the prize. All right, Uzumaki are built different, he repeated himself. Oh, to hell with you. Dosa snapped and lunged. He swung his right arm, but both Konoha genin in his path treated the gauntlet a bit more seriously, and dodged wide before he'd even begun the swing. Then Lee caught him in a sweeping kick combination, sending the genin into the arc of Nokojiroboko as Naruto swung the extended weapon. Dosa's body and head dropped to the ground separately as blood sprayed over the blonde and the scroll. The boy looked down at it for a moment. This is probably fine, he decided hopefully. Kin looked nervously at the Konoha shinobi, then she decided to cut her losses and run. Sakura looked at the clearing. You didn't even try to use my traps, she complained with a pout. Sorry, Naruto apologized as he snapped his weapon folded closed with a flick of his arm. The opportunity didn't really come up, he excused. Also, that opening attack that first guy used took out a lot of them, he added. Sakura sighed. Thank you for coming to help us, Lee, she began gratefully. But why did you? She asked curiously. I came, Lee began, because you needed me, and I always will, he declared proudly as he gave a thumbs up and a grin. He even winked. Sakura blinked in surprise. Wow, that's cheesy, but thanks for the help this time, she said honestly. What about your team though? She asked, concerned since the boy who seemed to be a Hyuga did not seem easy to get along with like the bushy eyebrows boy tried to be. Lee tensed up at the mention of his team. You're right, he realized with alarm. I hope to see you in the next phase, he said with a formal bow to Naruto and Sakura before he left almost as quickly as he came. I'd say your village is full of weirdos, but I'm beginning to think weirdos just gravitate towards becoming shinobi, Karen decided as she glanced back at Sasuke only to see the Uchiha stirring. Oh, Sasuke-kun is awake, she commented before she frowned because his chakra felt off to her. Are you okay? Sasuke slowly stood with glowing marks growing across his skin, his Sharingan active as he looked at the blood-stained Naruto and the corpses. Then he glanced down at his hands and flexed the fingers there. I've never felt better, he decided. Oh good, Naruto said. We can get moving then, right? He asked. They had been still for a bit too long. Sasuke stared at the blonde for a long moment, then the markings on his skin slowly receded. Yeah, I want to talk about that kitsune business I overheard before that bastard got me though, the Uchiha agreed, with a slight stipulation. Chapter 14. Tower surrounded by death. Naruto was hesitant to explain the Kyuubi situation again, and he was pretty sure he heard someone nearby. We should probably move first, he tried to point out. No, what did the guy mean about you having the Kyuubi no Yoko inside you? Sasuke demanded to know. Naruto has what? Naruto flinched and looked over at the yell, Ino Yamanaka. Her team was with her too and looked disgruntled at their hiding spot being ruined by the Kunoichi's alarmed exclamation. The blonde looked nervously between the people who learned it. Choji Akimichi just looked confused, like he didn't understand fully what was being discussed. Shikamaru Nara did not seem to care at all, he just looked bored even. Ino looked a bit scared and Sasuke looked annoyed with her. Thanks for revealing that to them, Naruto said sarcastically, and the Uchiha had the decency to wince. It's a special Fuinjutsu from the sounds of it, Sakura revealed as she stepped into the conversation. I think the term was Jinchuriki, she added to show off her intelligence. Naruto decided he didn't actually like that word very much. Ino narrowed her eyes at her pink-haired rival for a moment. Why do you dash? She began to ask, then her eyes widened. Oh, I see. Attracted to the dangerous and tragic? She asked with a raised eyebrow and hands on her hips. Sakura realized the implication immediately, and her cheeks flushed with embarrassment and anger. I only learned this last night. Sasuke-kun was still injured. She denied the hidden accusation. Ino just smirked. No point denying it, even if he is still a little scrawny. Naruto frowned. I'm pretty sure I could throw you like a Fuma shuriken, he said blandly. He had technically done it to himself once. Oh, do you? Ino dared as she took a stance. Shikamaru sighed. Ino, don't, he said blandly. Look at his eyes. He pointed out, and the male of the two blondes flinched from the girl's inquisitive stare. He probably actually is crazy strong. Chakra has a lot of impact on stuff like that. Also, that is a well-rested Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno behind him. He added, I know you want to fight your rival, but honestly I don't want to fight this cell. Naruto looks exhausted though, Ino argued, and injured, she added with a confused glance at the bloody torn clothing. He looks awake enough to kick my ass. Shikamaru retorted with a shrug, come on, you don't actually want to pick a fight with Sasuke's cell. He reminded her, and the girl backed down, albeit reluctantly. Choji sighed with relief and the tensions finally lowered. So, Jinchuriki, huh? He asked lightly. Naruto groaned and pinched the bridge of his nose. I think that's like a military secret or something, and you just blurted it in the woods where anyone could hear us, he accused with a glare at the Uchiha. Sasuke looked to Ino, who took a moment to realize what he wanted. Oh, us 7 are the only ones around now, the Yamanaka assured. Karen decided not to reveal her own sensory abilities right now. You need to hone your sensor ability, Sasuke told Naruto. Naruto has sensor ability? Ino snapped in surprise, aghast at the idea. It's weird and hard to focus, okay? Naruto lied angrily. Karen decided she'd query later if it was an actual sensor ability, or a lie to cover some weirdness he had pulled off. Is it related to the Kyuubi maybe? Sakura asked, because then that wouldn't be easy to control. She pointed out, but she sounded more like she was guessing. Why would a kitsune have sensor abilities? Sasuke asked. Maybe I was tracking his hatred because the Kyuubi is hatred. Naruto mused half-heartedly. Coming up with fake answers when he knew that his senses were just a bit more bestial was exhausting. That's stupid, Sasuke denied immediately. Oh, and you know how kitsune magic works? Naruto retorted rhetorically. Sasuke glared. Alright, fair point, he acquiesced reluctantly. Naruto sighed, then turned his attention back to Ino and her team. Iruka-sensei said this is forbidden to talk about or something, so can you just not talk about this? He asked. Shikamaru and Choji both nodded agreeably, so Ino was forced to agree as well. Then the blonde girl looked at Karen. So who is she anyway? She asked. I'm Karen, I'm with them. The Kusa Kunoichi wasn't sure who she should reveal her heritage to just yet, so she kept that quiet. Why are you with them? Shikamaru asked curiously. Naruto found her, we teamed up. Sasuke explained with a shrug, it was Sakura's idea. He added. Ino seemed to consider the Kusa Kunoichi, but she also saw the way Naruto shifted to stand between her and the other girl. The way he moved had her taking an involuntary step back. Well, I guess we better get going then, she decided. My name is Ino Yamanaka, by the way, she told Karen a bit late. Shikamaru Nara. Choji Akimichi, nice to meet you. The other two genin gave their greetings with very different effort levels. Then the cell were leaving anyway. So, Jinchuriki? Naruto groaned and slouched. Yes, Sasuke, I am a Jinchuriki. I have a chakra no Bakemono locked in my chakra somewhere somehow, he explained. Sasuke rubbed his neck as he considered Naruto with narrowed eyes. Is it worth it? He asked. How the fuck should I know? Naruto snapped. I do not know anything else. Yeah, there was a time I didn't know, but it's not like the kitsune wasn't there because I was unaware of it. He ranted at the Uchiha. I don't even know when I've used its powers for certain. I don't even think I have actual conscious control over that. Sasuke scowled before he shook his head with a sigh. You're right, we should move on, he said, and he meant both from the discussion and physically. Team 7 plus Karen sat around another fire by the river. Sasuke was pretty sure it was the same river, but they were further along it, and closer to the tower now. They had the scrolls they needed plus Karen's, so Cell 7 was set. Of course, Karen's technically would return to her team, but Sasuke still considered it to be in his team's possession until then for all purposes. Naruto had surprisingly elected to loot the enemy corpses further, including that strange gauntlet. The blonde adjusted the strange armor, opting to wear it on his left arm as opposed to his right so he could combine it with his Nokojuriboko more easily. He was pretty sure he could still use kunai and shuriken, so he tested palming and spinning a kunai with the added weight of the strange gauntlet as they waited for the fish to cook. "I still can't believe you actually kept that," Sakura grumbled. It had been rather odd to see the blonde looting a corpse. Grave robbing, some called it. Technically, shinobi weren't supposed to be above such things, but she still thought herself above such things. Naruto returned the kunai to his shuriken holster. "It seems pretty useful." He defended his decision. "Can you even use it?" Sasuke asked with a raised eyebrow. "Well, I can't exactly test it," Naruto grumbled. He'd only really seen it used on people. Sakura thought about it as she considered the gauntlet. He didn't exactly explain how it worked, did he? He just babbled about how it used sound, but he swung it to use it, so maybe he just needs to punch in the direction of who he wants to hit at a certain range. She guessed. Naruto considered that. Okay, no left punches for any Konoha shinobi until I know how this works. He decided, easy enough, we kind of just need to get to the tower now, right? It's only the second day too. He mused proudly. Karen adjusted her glasses. Well, better he has it than some enemy tracking us. She took the blonde's side. Naruto was glad to have the redhead in his corner. He decided he needed to talk to the Sandaime about if they could do something about her joining Konoha, since it felt wrong to have a member of his blood, his mortal blood, working for another village. Sasuke considered asking for it but shook his head at himself. Naruto had been the one to get the kills, so any weapons on the shinobi he killed were his by right. The Uchiha wanted power, but he still had pride. "So, we just rush the tower and keep an eye out for Karen's team?" Sasuke asked instead of voicing his thoughts. Karen shrugged. "If we can't find them, I'd honestly be happy to just enter the tower with you and disqualify them." She confessed, "I don't think I could survive this place alone even without that Orochimaru guy lurking around." She added with a shudder. All three genin of Cell 7 nodded in agreement with that. The Serpentine Sannin was terrifying on multiple levels. Granted, they were all scared of the man for differing reasons, but the fear was still mutual among the genin. Eventually the fish were ready, but before they were done eating, a pair of genin who had been apparently tracking them approached. "There you are, Karen," said one of the boys, who had a long dark green jacket over a black shirt and light green pants with a ninjato wrapped in bandages on his back as well as a green bandana. The other boy had a blue jacket and black jumpsuit with a scarf. Both the boys had plain brown hair and dark brown eyes. Karen flinched at the sight of them. "What are you doing with these Konoha genin?" the other member of Karen's team asked warily. "We made a temporary alliance of convenience," Sasuke answered dryly when it looked like Karen would remain silent. "She still has your guy's scroll," Sakura added. "Our alliance was basically built of the fact we don't need it," she clarified. The two Kusa genin looked between each other, then at Karen. The girl was refusing to meet their eyes. Naruto frowned at the way she was acting around him. He understood why Haku had felt the need to question him about his relationship to his team now. The Kusa boy with the ninjato stepped ahead of his teammate. "Karen, we got injured looking for you. I hope you're ready to help us with that," he warned, and the girl tensed. Karen was clearly conflicted and Naruto did not like it. "Hey, what kind of Iri ninjutsu are you going to make her do?" he asked. "Same she already did for you from the looks of it," the same boy responded with a gesture towards Naruto's torn clothing but lack of injuries. Naruto glanced down. "Actually, I'm just built different," he decided as he stood up. "I'm also feeling kind of protective of Karen-chan after she helped us out. So how do you intend to make her heal you, and why does it seem to terrify her?" he asked as his right hand drifted to his holstered Nokojuriboko. Sakura frowned and glanced at Karen, who was sitting there as if frozen stiff while staring at the ground with her hair hiding her face. Sasuke stood up to stand by his blonde teammate. He had some things he wanted to test. "It's Kusagakure no Sato business, you brat," the Kusa genin snapped as he reached for his own sheathed blade. From experience and knowledge of how scabbards work, the Uchiha and Haruno could tell the blonde would win on the draw even if the Kusa boy attacked first, since his scabbard was on his back while Naruto's holster was on his hip. The blonde genin glowered at the two for a moment longer. Karen Nichin, he began, and his choice of honorific got mixed reactions. What are they going to do to you? He asked. Karen shivered. She didn't want to answer the question, but even being vague about it was damning. Help me, she begged quietly as she met Naruto's slit pupils with her eyes. That was more than enough for the blonde. His protective instinct went into overdrive and he turned a glare on the two other Kusa genin as he lowered his stance. That decides it. I'm protecting her from here on, you know, he declared bluntly as his killing intent left the two genin sweating. They were clearly debating attacking, and Sasuke wished they would. To his surprise, the Uchiha was in fact tempted to attack them first, which was not like him. He tempered this desire with the cautious idea that they might have a counter-attack ready, but the itch to pounce before the enemy could attack remained. Sakura was confused and startled by the direction this had gone. She had expected them to be able to get along, but it seemed like Karen didn't exactly get along with her own team. Karen's expression was guilty as she hid behind Naruto, indicating she had at least suspected something like this might happen. The two Kusa genin were on edge as they stared down Naruto and Sasuke. On the one hand, the two Konoha genin were shorter than them. On the other hand, Naruto had slit pupils and was covered in blood, and Sasuke looked like he was eagerly waiting for an excuse to engage in violence. One of each pair of boys had a weapon, but only the Konoha pair had the two kunoichi on their side as well. Eventually, the two Kusa genin seemed to finish weighing up the situation. Fine, we're out of here, the one with the ninjato decided. Sasuke hid his disappointment with indifference. He was sure he had some new power waiting to be used, and he was itching to test it out. The urge to do so against Naruto occurred to him, but they were a team and they were in the middle of exams. They could spar later. The rest of the trip towards the tower in the middle of the forest was mostly uneventful. Sasuke wanted to fight, but he could see that Naruto was not going to sleep while they were there. He presumed his blonde teammate would only grow more fatigued the longer they were there, so he figured he would get his chance to test himself in the third phase. Karen didn't seem to want to talk about what had happened. Sasuke had raised an eyebrow that she was still traveling with them, but she gave them a numerical advantage and a spare scroll, so the Uchiha couldn't find reason to complain. Much to Sasuke's annoyance, the next shinobi they ran into was also not hostile. Kabuto held his hands up as a sign of peace as he approached, most likely because Naruto had noticed him and leveled the area with killing intent before noticing who it was. Easy there, just me, Kabuto greeted nervously. I got separated from my team. They have our scrolls, so I don't have much to bargain with. But we can work together, right? He requested. You guys seem to get safety in numbers already. Karen couldn't deny that her presence did make it hard to refuse his offer. Naruto relaxed a little and glanced at Sasuke, who sighed. Alright, might as well. The Uchiha agreed. We're on our way to the tower, so I hope your team can meet you there, he added. Kabuto lowered his arms and nodded with a smile. Of course, we had an easy time with one of those Taki cells, he bragged. For a place that produces such good jonin, their chunin applicants could use some work. Naruto recalled that Suyin had been a jonin. Their jonin still died to a massive chest wound like most people. He commented morbidly. Karen raised both of her eyebrows in alarm. Kabuto blinked. I'm not going to ask how you know that from experience, he said carefully. But yes, I imagine your weapon would cause sucking chest wounds. He agreed, not commenting on the fact that the depth of the cuts in Naruto's clothes indicated the blonde had already suffered a sucking chest wound and lived. Let's move, Sasuke ordered impatiently, urging the group of now 5 genin to move. By evening the tower didn't seem to be getting any closer. Then Naruto stopped. I've avoided alerting the same giant centipede all day, he said as he stared at the hiding spot of the monstrous thing. Have we been going in circles? He asked. Sasuke shook his head. No, Kabuto spoke up first as he adjusted his glasses. Genjutsu meant to wear us out, he realized, and flared his chakra to break out of it. The others attempted the same. Sakura and Karen had no difficulty. Sasuke doubled over in pain and clutched his neck while Naruto simply glowed with visible yellow chakra. Sasuke-kun! Sakura cried out in alarm and moved to check on him. The Uchiha waved her off and straightened himself out. You broke the genjutsu? She asked, and he nodded. Naruto cocked his head to the side. I don't think I did. He mused. You're just pouring chakra out. We could use you as a lantern. Karen pointed out, you need to fluctuate your chakra more. She explained. The blonde made another attempt. Still nothing. Naruto confirmed as he stopped glowing. Karen sighed and stepped closer to touch his shoulder and push chakra into him. Oh, thanks. Kabuto looked between the two pairs of genin with a raised eyebrow. He considered teasing all four at once, but before he could, the air filled with laughter. For such a scary brat, he's weak to genjutsu, huh? A voice mused, thrown from two different directions. Sasuke supposed it could be two different people with similar voices. Throwing one's voice wasn't an uncommon skill among shinobi. The Uchiha was annoyed that the strange mark had rewarded him with pain instead of power for trying to use his chakra. That had been an unexpected and unpleasant surprise. Still, 5 of them working together, another voice mused as figures in yellow jumpsuits rose up from the ground. This might be difficult. He pointed out, each figure had a rebreather and a hitite for Amigekure no Sato, but masks of bandages over their eyes with different amounts of eye holes. Some had none. Nonsense, they'd flocked together because they're desperate. A third voice spoke from among what Sasuke assumed were some kind of bunshin. So, let's see what they can. The man was cut off by Naruto leaping at the nearest group of bunshin and swinging his weapon to extend at them. To the blonde it was simple. He did not know if the bunshin were physical or not, but he didn't know where the voice was coming from, so he attacked that. To his surprise, there was no resistance from any of them. They did not dispel into vapor like chakra constructs, indicating a more in-nature chakra in the creation of the bunshin. Naruto took a moment to appreciate that reading about chakra theory actually was worth something. Who knew? You fool! The AIM ninja did not seem to appreciate his genius. You really are just a dumb yaiju of a fighter, aren't you? He mocked, and the blonde glowered. Oboro Bunshin no Jutsu can't be beaten by such an idiot. I hope your team can carry you here. He taunted. Yes, we can. Sakura said proudly. Sasuke-kun and I are great at genjutsu. We'll beat your jutsu and kick your asses. She declared. The Uchiha agreed with her sentiments, but her enthusiasm was as grating as it was surprising. Karen nodded. Actually, I already know where they are. You came real close to taking his head off with that swing, I think, Naruto-kun. She said, but they're moving underground when not hiding in the trees with another ninjutsu somehow. She warned. How the fuck did she dash? The AIM ninja's confusion was cut off by Naruto doing something unexpected. He used the Kabaku Fuda on the ground and leaped. Take cover. He warned his team as he grabbed Karen and took his own advice. Kabuto, Sasuke, and Sakura were almost too startled to actually take his advice. But they managed to, and after the dust of the explosion settled, they saw one of the AIM genin, with 2 eye holes in the mask of bandages over his eyes, helping up another who had lost his left foot to the blast. Naruto leaped and was intercepted by the third. Who is an idiot now? The blonde snapped as he swung his left arm at the intercepting genin. He heard the echo of the sound that had caused him so much pain as his left fist hit the guard of his opponent. However, nothing happened. Naruto stared at the Kyomiai Supaka with an expression of dull irritation. Still you. The AIM ninja said as he struck out with a palmed kunai. This one had his left eye visible at least. The blade was stopped in Naruto's left grip. There was some blood, but the blonde just looked annoyed as he started to push the arm of his attack back and lifted his own weapon. Nokojiriboko dropped into the left shoulder of the AIM genin before he could pull away. Sasuke was on the last one as he tried to pick up his wounded ally. The Uchiha kicked his left knee out from under him and wrenched his right arm into a hold. Those same strange markings as when he first woke up after the fight with Orochimaru were back over the right side of his face. Karen and Sakura flinched. Naruto was brutal, but somehow Sasuke's intentional limb snapping was more vicious, perhaps because it was more intentional. The pink-haired Kunoichi moved to intervene. Sasuke-kun, stop. We won! She attempted to placate the oddly bloodthirsty boy. Naruto wrenched his blade free of the corpse he'd made as he took in the situation. Sasuke was still for a moment. The hair of the Uchiha covered his eyes as the marks slowly receded. Karen noticed Kabuto was more surprised by that than anything so far, strangely enough. Hand over your scroll, Sasuke demanded of the 2 living AIM genin. The Uchiha had been irate to learn that the AIM cell who attacked them had a 10-no-show, the one that Cell 7 had started with, and now had 2 spares. He supposed less competition in the last phase was less competition in the last phase. Sasuke was more concerned about his mark. It was harder to control himself than he thought. He wondered if Naruto felt something similar with the kitsune, and that was why he fell into the killing aspect of being a shinobi so quickly. Orochimaru definitely had not given him power freely. Sasuke wasn't an idiot, but it was intoxicating power. The drawbacks hurt though, and trying to use his chakra without pulling on the strange power was impossible. Of course, Sasuke kept all this to himself with an impassive face as the group traveled the rest of the way to the tower and split up with Kabuto. The Uchiha was surprised Karen went in with them, but no one stopped her. Then they weren't sure what to do. They made it by the morning of the 3rd day, but it felt like much longer. Probably because they decided to forego rest in favor of rushing the tower in the night. The only clue for what to do was a parchment with missing words. Open one of the 10-no-show and the chi-no-show. Sasuke told Sakura and Naruto, I think that's what we do next, right? We were told not to open them until we got to the tower, and I think the scrolls have the key to that parchment. He explained his reasoning. Sakura nodded in understanding as Sasuke handed her and Naruto a scroll each. You open it then. Naruto argued, I'm not getting hit with some booby trap that crazy lady set. He denied. Sasuke rolled his eyes. You seemed comfortable in her arms a few days ago. He reminded the blonde, who flushed bright red at the reminder, but he held on to the scroll and adjusted his grip to open it himself. Karen watched curiously as Sasuke and Sakura opened the scrolls, then the Uchiha's eyes widened, dropped them. He warned suddenly and tossed it down. His kunoichi teammate followed his lead hastily as the two hopped back. Before Naruto could gloat, there was a cloud of smoke and the displacement of air as a new presence entered the room. Hey, kids! Iruka greeted, standing there with his arms crossed and his eyes closed, although his smile dropped when his eyes opened. It's wait, what? What happened? He asked, eyes on Naruto. The blonde looked down at himself. Blood-stained and ragged-clothed, he probably looked like a corpse. He was paler than normal. His eyes definitely had bags under them, and those eyes had slit pupils. Naruto didn't really have a good excuse. It's been a long 3 days. He decided on his answer with a tired nod, as if agreeing with himself. Karen figured she needed to help him out here. Hi, she said. My name is Karen Uzumaki, she introduced, and Sasuke's head turned on a swivel with wide eyes. And I'd like to defect to Konohagakure no Sato to become Naruto Uzumaki's personal physician. I know some Iri ninjutsu, and I know how Uzumaki physiology differs from normal. She recited. Iruka stared at the redhead with an open mouth and wide eyes as he processed the speech he just received. Physician? Naruto asked blithely. He did not want to see a doctor. It means unless you need surgery, I handle your health, Karen said. And as soon as Naruto processed that meant no doctors since he would not need surgery ever, he nodded in agreement. Iruka blinked a few times, fluttered his chakra, and pinched himself. I'm, going to need to talk to Hokage-sama. He realized, we had a speech prepared about the parchment here for you, about training wherever you're lacking, but this is kind of a lot. He confessed as he steadied himself. I'll take you 3 to a room, then I'll take Karen to see Hokage-sama. He decided after a moment. I want to go too, Naruto insisted. Iruka shook his head. You can't leave the tower, and I can't leave Karen here. He denied, and the blonde frowned. The rooms in the tower were bare of anything but essentials, and Sakura would argue that it barely had those. 3 bunks, a bench, a fridge, and a microwave was not great lodgings, but it was better than the forest. Plus it mercifully had a shower, sink, and toilet in an en-suite. Sakura wanted to go first, but she swallowed that for now. You clean yourself and those clothes off before you touch anything, the pink-haired kunoichi insisted. Naruto took the opportunity for what it was, locked the en-suite door, set down his tool pouch, shuriken holster, and sat down in the shower fully clothed with the water running over him as he pulled out his silver bell. With a ring, his body got the best rest it had in days as he opened his eyes in the dream. The blonde knew he couldn't stay long, but he needed to rest his body and mind a bit. He didn't feel tired normally, and he couldn't sleep, but fatigue and exhaustion could still affect him physically. It was a strange thing to get used to. The fact he had more chi no ishi was another factor. Everyone he'd killed in the forest had some. The first two had the most, he realized, but he had some. He looked at the Kyomi Supaka and recalled what the doll said about arcane, so he focused on arcane as he silently approached the doll. With that done, he practiced chakra control a bit more with the leaf balancing exercise while keeping an eye on his pocket watch, but after 10 minutes he knew he should return to his body. He blinked his eyes open and stretched with a groan. Naruto made a mental note to leave his body to sleep in a better position that wasn't on tiles next time. As he stood up and turned off the shower, he dried his hair, clothes, and finally his weapon with a towel that had started off white but ended up red by the time he was done. Wow, and I'm still stained with blood. Naruto mused idly as he checked himself in the mirror over the sink. His pupils were still slits. He looked a bit more gaunt and pale too, but his hair looked vibrant, and his skin felt surprisingly smooth considering he could grow fur sometimes, so maybe blood was good for skin and hair. Naruto immediately shook that thought from his head. It was weird enough how closely tied he was to blood. He did not need to be thinking of it as a beauty product on top of that. He was a guy anyway, he didn't need that stuff, and with that thought he left the en-suite bathroom. Sakura's eyes widened at the sight of him. Did you just shower with your clothes on? She asked. Then she noticed he looked a bit less exhausted, the bags under his eyes less deep, and he wasn't fully cleaned. Did you just sleep in there the whole time? She snapped. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, however. That the blonde had slept for precisely 10 minutes after not doing so for 3 days wasn't just improbable, it was weird. He supposed there was no point questioning it. Uzumaki and a Jinchuriki meant clearly not normal. I was tired, you know. Naruto excused with a shrug as he considered the Kyomi Supaka again. It was a ninja tool specifically, so maybe it used chakra? The blonde would need to wait for an opportunity to test that out himself, but he didn't mind. You're going to get blood on your bed, Sakura pointed out. Naruto looked at the white sheets. I'm not going to sleep there anyway, he pointed out. You cannot just sleep in the bathroom until the second phase is over. Naruto slept in the bathroom until the second phase of the examinations were concluding, much to Sakura's chagrin. During this time, the Sandaime Hokage came around to talk to Naruto privately about the situation with Karen, confirming that they might be able to work something out and that they would talk more after the second phase concluded. The blonde Uzumaki did not go down into the depths during this time. He couldn't risk being caught leaving and getting disqualified after coming so far. Instead, he used his time in the dream to hone his chakra control. He wasn't sure how valuable physical training would be in the dream, though. Surprisingly, 7 entire teams passed, something none of the proctors expected. Of the 21 genin, the most surprising was that all 9 of the rookies of Konohagakure no Sato were among them. Iruka had never felt so foolish for doubting his former students. The genin were gathered in a stadium room with a statue of giant hands doing the ram hand seal against one wall with 2 balconies on either side of the room. The examining officers, Sandaime Hokage, proctors, and jonin commanders of each genin cell were gathered. As well as the 9 rookie genin, Rock Lee and Tenten had also passed with the pale-eyed boy. As had the team from Sunagakure containing Gaara, Kankuro, and Temari, Kabuto's team from Konohagakure, and a team of AIM genin who were wearing matching outfits. They all wore red jumpsuits with black mantles that had their hitaite stitched to the left shoulder, ninjato strapped to their hips, and wide-brimmed conical straw hats on their heads. Naruto wondered what was up with AIM and matching outfits. He swore the other 3 teams from there also seemed uniformed in a way. Then he caught Ino and Shikamaru staring at him and flinched. He looked away from the 2 and pointedly avoided meeting anyone's eyes. His pupils were still slit. He had no idea how to fix that. While Naruto had slowly recovered from the forest, Sasuke had only festered from the inaction and gotten visibly more on edge. Sakura noticed and was worried about him, but he seemed to have the situation under control for now. She just wished she had thought to bring up the strange Fuinjutsu Orochimaru had used on both her teammates earlier, but neither of them had brought it up when the adults had been present either. The jonin of each team was present as well, as were the proctors and the Sandaime Hokage himself. Kakashi knew most of them, including Madogai, the jonin in charge of Lee's team. Most could guess the connection between the man and the boy from the outfit, haircut, and eyebrows alone. Impressive that your students made it this far, Guy whispered to Kakashi. I wonder how much of their showing can be attributed to beginner's luck. Not that it matters, my team is bound to knock them out in the next round. He taunted. Kakashi glanced side-eyed at his rival. You say something? He asked as if he hadn't heard it. The other Jonin turned away to silently admit defeat. Congratulations to you all on passing the second phase of the exams. Anko called out, stunned that so many had made it. She'd personally guessed that the results would be in the single digits. She was now glad none of the proctors had taken bets on how many would get through her test. Now, Hokage-sama will explain about the third phase. Listen up and take every word he says to heart. She finished, ceding the stage to the Sandaime Hokage. Hiruzen stepped forward, his pipe held in his mouth. Very well, the third phase of the examinations are set to commence. He began, however, before I go into specifics, I wish to make something perfectly clear. It pertains to the underlying purpose of these exams. He continued in a serious voice. Why do you suppose an examination of this nature is being held by joint nations? He questioned as he adjusted his Hokage hat, to promote friendship among the allied nations and keep a raised level of standards among the shinobi arts. I'll be more clear about what that fine-sounding phrase actually means. This series of examinations is, in fact, a proxy war. He explained. The Ain Genin didn't seem surprised, the Suna Genin seemed thoughtful, but aside from Kabuto's team the Konoha Genin were all startled by that explanation. What do you mean a proxy war? Tenten questioned, unable to keep her alarm out of her voice. Hiruzen puffed some smoke from his nose. If you study our recent history, and look at the geography of the nations, you'll understand that the alliances between our villages is merely a temporary mutually beneficial agreement between a group of geographically contiguous lands. He explained at length, previously these lands were in constant struggle, vying against each other openly and in secret over limited resources. The Chunin selection examinations were devised as a far better way of fighting over resources. He continued. I thought the point was to select Chunin. Naruto burst out, concerned about that more than anything. He wanted to be Chunin, and he didn't want to have gone through the first two phases for nothing after all that. Make no mistake, Hiruzen continued, once these examinations are done they will have the side effect of narrowing down who is fit to be promoted to Chunin, while those who yet lack the skill required are winnowed out. He assured, however, more importantly, it serves as the stage for young shinobi to fight for the honor of their homelands, to the death if need be. He explained coldly. Honor of our homelands? Ino spoke up, wondering how that worked. The third phase of the exams is a more public affair, Hiruzen answered, traditionally a tournament of those who passed the first two phases. The rulers and nobility of the various lands will be watching closely, using this to decide which village has shinobi better fit for the tasks and missions they need done. He continued to explain, and Naruto got excited at the prospect of proving himself in front of such an audience. Among them will be the leaders of each hidden village whose ninja made it to the final round. So why do we have to risk our lives? Kiba snapped, confused by that detail. The strength of a land is derived from the strength of its village, and the village derives its strength from the shinobi who live there. Hiruzen answered calmly, showing no offense at the outburst. A shinobi shows their true strength during life or death struggles. He added simply, these exams are a public arena for each village to boast the strength of their warriors, and thus the strength of the country itself. This test has great meaning and consequence. As you struggle for your very lives, you help fulfill the dream envisioned by your ancestors. Tenten was disturbed by the speech from the usually grandfatherly Hokage, suddenly becoming very aware that he survived to an old age in a profession that trades in death. So, why have you always emphasized the concept of friendship and love? She asked. The High-No Ishi was a predominant faith in Konoha after all. I have always chosen my words carefully, although the meaning may have been subtle. Hiruzen answered, to preserve balance of power at the risk of lives. That is the essence of friendship in the shinobi world. He explained, allow me to reiterate before the third exam begins, this is no ordinary test. You risk not only your own futures and dreams, but the prestige and dignity of your home village as well. He finished. Gaara was eager to begin, whatever can we wrap up the philosophy discussion and get down to the life or death stuff now? He asked, losing patience. Hiruzen harumphed at the young Suna Genin's attitude. So you wish me to get on with it, and explain the third exam? Very well then, he agreed, only for one of the proctors to step down in front of him and bow. Forgive my interruption, Hokage-sama, but if you don't mind handing the rest of the proceedings to myself, Hate Gecko, proctor of the third exam, the man requested humbly. Go ahead. Hiruzen agreed with a nod, watching the man stand and turn to face the genin. Hate was a young man with short brown hair, dark-colored eyes and dark markings under his eyes. He wore his hataite as a bandana, the standard Konoha shinobi uniform with flak vest, and his shuriken holster strapped to his right leg. To all the genin he looked rather sickly, and a few wondered if he was currently sick. Before we start, Hate began with a few coughs, I must ask you all to do something for me. He spoke with a few more coughs that made the genin wonder what was wrong with him. You see, there are some preliminaries to get through before we start the exams properly, he explained. Preliminaries. A few genin exclaimed. Sakura's stomach dropped. What for? Shikamaru asked. Well, I don't want to say the first two exams weren't demanding enough, Hate continued, coughing nervously as Anko and Ibiki looked a mix of annoyed and impressed, but we still have too many applicants. He explained, basically we need to thin the herd to keep the actual third exam exciting for the audience. Having a tournament last multiple days isn't great for the schedule of visiting lords and dignitaries. So if you feel unfit to continue, feel free to leave now. It's an individual merit from here on out, so if you're too tired to take part in the preliminary, or you don't feel mentally up to it, you're free to quit. Kabuto raised his hand. Yeah, I'm done. My team barely made it in time and I'm wiped out, he informed. Sakura glanced at Sasuke and Naruto with worry. She thought both of them should, but knew neither of them would drop out. At least the Uchiha seemed to have everything under control. Kabuto Yakushi, right? Hate asked as he checked his clipboard. Alright, you can go. He agreed, causing some muttering between the proctors and Hokage. If no one else is dropping out, Hate continued after a few moments with a cough. Then with the remaining 20 applicants we'll hold 10 bouts, and the victors of those fights will advance to the final phase of the exam. He explained, these fights will be no holds barred, to the death or unconsciousness. If you feel your opponent is out of your league, then surrender immediately if you value your life. He warned, that being said, we don't want a total bloodbath, so we may step in and decide to end the match, either one of us proctors, your Jonin commanders, or the Hokage himself. With that in mind, we'll show who is fighting who on this electronic scoreboard, he added, gesturing to a panel on the wall that opened up to reveal a black screen. He didn't mention that it was programmed to avoid putting members of the same genin cell against each other. The first two names flashed on the screen: Sasuke Uchiha vs. Yoro Ikado.